Day 104 of the apocalypse. I was tied to a chair with steel cables, unable to move. I'd been trapped like this for 67 days. My right wrist was separately strung up and bound to the steel bars of a security window with wire. I'd tried to break free so many times that the skin on my wrist had worn down to raw flesh, but I still couldn't escape. The freezing cold made my body stiff. Escaping was impossible now. My cousin Lin Warner hit me across the back with a steel pipe. "Hurry up, take food out of the space," I obeyed. I pressed my thumb against the red birthmark on my index finger, focused my mind, and pulled out a steamed bun. She snatched it and walked away to sit with her mother, my aunt, Wang Qingmei. "Mom, can't we transfer the space to us? She stinks. Just kill her already," Warner complained while chewing. "Oh, my poor baby, just bear with it," Aunt Qingmei cooed. "What if the space disappears when she dies? All the food is in there." I stared at that white bun and swallowed hard. They'd tied my right hand far away on purpose. The space could only drop things on my right side, so I could never reach the food with my mouth. I was nothing but a living tool, barely kept alive. My fiancé Tang Zhe and my uncle Lin Zheng climbed up from the underground pipes carrying a few rats.
Vanya was thrilled.
Uncle said to keep the rats alive rather than eat them all at once. When Aunt asked what they'd feed the rats, Uncle just pointed at me. She understood immediately. She ripped off my pants and placed the cage of starving rats on my bare thighs. The rats smelled flesh and started gnawing through the wire mesh into my skin. The pain was unbearable and the sensation was sickening, but I had no strength left to scream. I couldn't even shake my leg.
Van laughed, enjoying my suffering.
Tang Zhe only said, "Don't go too far, don't kill her," then casually ate his share of the bun. That night, while those monsters slept peacefully, I watched the rats chewing into my thigh and felt every stab of pain. I finally understood. It wasn't just the apocalypse that devoured people. Human hearts devoured people too. There was no point in living anymore. I slowly lost consciousness. Half an hour ago, I was reborn. When I calmed down and gathered my thoughts, I still doubted everything. Maybe the apocalypse was just a nightmare. I lifted my hand. No red birthmark on my finger. No space ability either. Maybe it really was just a dream? But something felt wrong. I jumped up in a panic and rushed to the bookshelf, tearing through it. I remembered clearly. There was a bookmark hidden inside a red book on the shelf. I fought through a splitting headache and checked every red book one by one. I found it. I'd torn through half the shelf, books scattered all over the floor, but I found it. I sat down on the pile of books, holding a shimmering golden bookmark. It was made of some unknown metal, carved with intricate hollow patterns. There was no time to admire it. I bit my finger and dripped blood onto it. The dark red blood spread across the hollow patterns. It looked strangely beautiful. I stared at it, holding my breath, but nothing happened. In my dream, I'd accidentally cut my finger on this bookmark while reading, and it had instantly created a massive storage space. So, why wasn't it reacting now? Was it really just a dream after all? I was desperate for proof. Without caring about the pain, I grabbed the bookmark and slashed it hard across my wrist. Blood poured out over the bookmark. Much more than before. The golden glow on the bookmark grew brighter and brighter, shifting from gold to white. The glowing parts slowly melted away, the bookmark shrank, and then it vanished completely. So that was the trick. The bookmark needed to cause the bleeding itself. Last time the mark had settled on my finger. This time, it settled on my wrist. A small birthmark appeared right where I'd cut. I closed my eyes, focused my mind, and entered the space with practiced ease. It was identical to the one from my dream. The bookmark really could become a space, which meant the apocalypse in my dream was real. The torture was real. All of it happened, and now I had been reborn. "Little Shu, are you awake? Come out and have some fruit," my Aunt Wang Qingmei called sweetly from outside the door. The instant I heard her voice, I snapped out of the space. My whole body went ice cold, and my stomach churned violently. Every scene of torture flashed through my mind. I forced myself to stay calm. "I'm not feeling well. I'm going to sleep a bit more." Don't worry about me. Her voice turned anxious on the other side of the door. Oh no, what's wrong? Let Annie take you to the hospital. That voice used to feel so warm to me. Now it only made me feel sick and cold to the bone. I clenched my teeth. I'll be fine after some rest. Really? All right, but if you still feel bad, tell Annie, okay? I'll take you to the hospital. Her footsteps faded away. I breathed heavily, cold sweat dripping down the side of my face. The memories from my past life were becoming clearer than ever. May 28th, 2030. I remember that date clearly. It was my birthday. That day, while reading in my room, I found the golden bookmark I'd lost a long time ago. My dad had given it to me as a birthday gift when I turned 10. He used to give me a present every year, but when I was 14, both my parents suddenly killed themselves. No one ever explained why. I was sitting there, turning the bookmark over in my hands, thinking about the old days with my parents, when the sharp edge sliced my finger. The bookmark started glowing, then it melted and flowed into my fingertip, forming a red birthmark. I was stunned. After experimenting, I figured out that if I closed my eyes and focused on the birthmark, my consciousness could enter a separate space. My physical body couldn't go in, only my mind. The space looked like a huge warehouse, maybe 400 or 500 square meters. It was bright inside, and beyond the warehouse walls there was just white fog. I tried touching the boundary and hit an invisible wall. I tested the space many times after that. I could store and retrieve things freely. Living things couldn't go in, and anything stored inside was frozen in time. A steaming hot bun put in today would still be steaming hot when I took it out the next day. It was amazing, but it didn't really change my daily life, so I never told anyone. I just tossed good food in there whenever I came across it. The apocalypse started on July 10th, 2030. At the end of June, it rained heavily for days. I was worried the rain might not stop and it'd be hard to go out for groceries, so I stocked up a lot of supplies in my space. Then the rain kept getting worse, the temperature plummeted, and eventually it turned to snow. In just one day, thick snow piled up everywhere. Schools closed, companies shut down, transportation collapsed. The cold kept getting worse until it became an extreme freeze. After my parents died, I'd been living with my uncle and aunt's family. They took care of me, and I treated them like my own parents. So when the apocalypse hit and I still had food in my space, I didn't hesitate. I told them everything about the space. We all shared the food together. Later, I even brought my fiancé Tangja to stay with us. We grabbed enough warm clothes and blankets and hid in the basement, planning to ride it out together.
But it didn't last.
I caught my fiancé and my cousin Warner sleeping together. I was heartbroken and furious. My uncle and aunt acted ashamed. They slapped Warner several times and forced her to apologize. Then they sat with me and we drank together. I got drunk. When I woke up, I was tied to a chair. Every single one of them had dropped their masks. Between the beatings and the humiliation, they told me everything I'd been blind to all these years. My parents didn't kill themselves. They were murdered by my uncle's family. My fiancé had been planted by them to get close to me. Every bit of kindness they'd ever shown me was just to get their hands on my family's property. They'd been planning my accidental death for a long time. Even without the apocalypse, they would have killed me eventually. That's where the memories ended. My fists were clenched so tight that the wound on my wrist split open and started bleeding again. But heaven gave me a second chance. This time, I would love only myself. And I would make sure every one of those monsters paid for what they did. I wiped the blood from my hand with a wet tissue, my eyes turning cold. The kind of people the law can't touch? Well, when the apocalypse comes, I'll deal with them myself. But revenge wasn't the priority right now. Survival was. I'd just graduated from college. I was 23. I'd started an online store during university and saved up a decent amount. Combined with what my parents left me, I had about 930,000 yuan. But that wasn't nearly enough. On top of the money, I owned an apartment, the very one I was living in with my uncle's family. My parents had left it to me. All these years, people said my uncle and aunt took me in, but really, they'd been living in my house. I was just too young and alone for them to remember who the real owner was. I checked the time. May 20th. The apocalypse would hit on July 10th, less than 2 months away. The heavy rain would start at the end of June, so realistically, I had about 40 days. I spent an hour calming down and organizing my thoughts. I made a plan. First, get money, mortgage the apartment for a loan. Second, stockpile supplies. Third, find a shelter and reinforce it. Fourth, sit comfortably in my shelter and watch those bastards suffer. All of this had to be done in 30 to 40 days. I couldn't waste a single minute. I washed my face, grabbed the property deed and all my documents, threw on my bag, and headed for the door. Little Shu, where are you going? Aunt Qingmei was in the kitchen wearing an apron, pretending to care. Meeting a friend. I won't be home for dinner. I didn't want anything to do with them, but I couldn't waste time fighting with garbage people before the apocalypse. Better to act like nothing had changed. What friend? A boy or a girl? She asked it casually, but I knew she was panicking inside. If I got involved with another man and dumped Tangja, I'd slip out of their control. A girl, I said and walked out the door. The moment I left, Qingmei called Tangja. Did you have a fight with Lin Shu? Something's off about her. You'd better sweet-talk her quick. Don't let her run off with some other man. Tangja had his arm around Wanner's spare shoulder. Relax, I've got her wrapped around my finger. She's not going anywhere. He hung up. Wanner looked up and cupped his face. Don't you dare mention that tomboy in front of me. He leaned down. Of course not, babe. She's nothing compared to you. The dark room was full of passion. Meanwhile, I was standing in front of the bank, frowning. I'd been so worked up that I'd grabbed my documents and rushed out without checking the time. It was 6:53 p.m. The bank staff had gone home long ago. Today was a bust. I turned around, got in my car, and drove off to get something to eat. After months of starvation in the apocalypse, I was absolutely starving. I parked near my university's food alley. I went to college locally, so I knew every corner of this city, especially the food spots. Behind the campus, there was an alley full of little restaurants. I'd been eating at some of them for years. Walking back into that alley felt exactly the same as before. Colorful signs advertising every kind of snack. The clang of spatulas, shop owners arguing with each other, dogs barking, customers chatting and laughing. All that messy noise filled my ears, and it made me feel incredibly calm and safe. It reminded me I was still alive. The world was still at peace. I walked into my favorite shop and didn't even need to look at the menu. One pork loin flatbread and a bowl of clam noodles, medium spicy. Oh, you haven't been here in a while. I'll get it ready right away. Granny Lu's warm voice called out. I looked up and saw her slightly hunched back as she got to work. She was fast. 10 minutes later, a big bowl of clam noodles and a flatbread stuffed with pork loin were sitting in front of me. I grabbed the flatbread and took a huge bite. The crust was still perfectly crispy, the meat still tender and delicious. I picked up my chopsticks, stirred the noodles, and started shoveling them in. They had extra sesame oil, rich and fragrant. Slow down, child. Why are you eating so fast today? Granny Lu scolded me gently. I wanted to answer, but my mouth was packed full. I chewed hard and stretched my neck out trying to swallow. Finally, I got it down. It's been so long since I've had this. I really missed it. Still just as good. Granny Lu paused while wiping a table. Come by more often, dear. My husband's legs are getting worse. Before long, I'm going to close the shop and take him back to the countryside to retire. I actually thought that was good news. With the apocalypse coming, the countryside would be much easier to survive in than the city. People in villages were used to stocking up on food and supplies since the nearest town was far away. Even when the apocalypse hit, they'd hold out for a while. Then I'll come by as many times as I can, Granny. Otherwise, I'll never get to eat this again. If you really can't make it, come find me in the village. I'll cook for you, no charge. She was fond of me. She'd watched me grow up eating her flatbread since I was little. After I finished eating, it was completely dark. I checked my phone. 8:14 p.m. I sighed. I had no choice but to go home. I really didn't want to go back and see those disgusting faces. But the apocalypse was still over 2 months away. If I showed my hand too early, it would only hurt me. Plus, I still had things in the house I needed to take care of. But the property deed, I was taking that to the bank tomorrow, and I absolutely could not let anything happen to it tonight. I focused my mind and stored the deed, my household registration booklet, and all my other documents into my space. When I opened the front door, my uncle, my aunt, and Warner were all sitting neatly on the sofa. They looked angry, but the moment they saw me, they wiped it all away and put on smiles. Aunt Qingmei rushed up to me with a big grin. "Oh, little Shu, why are you back so late? Your uncle and I were so worried." She reached for my hand. I looked at that hand and felt my stomach turn. Those were the same hands that had tied me up with wire. I frowned and pulled away. Her hand grabbed at empty air. Are you upset, little Shu?" she asked with a careful, concerned look. Seeing that act made me sick. That exact expression was how she'd fooled me all those years, hiding her vicious nature behind a mask of warmth.
I'm fine.
Just stressed about the job search. I can handle it. I made up an excuse so they wouldn't get suspicious. Then come sit and have some fruit, Juana said, patting the seat next to her like she owned the place. Every single piece of fruit on that table had been bought with my money. I sat down, not wanting to give myself away. Little Shu, I was cleaning your room earlier and noticed a lot of bloody tissues in your trash can. Are you hurt? Aunt Qingmei asked, pretending to be concerned. Nothing worth hiding there. Yeah, I accidentally cut my hand on something while reading. It's mostly healed now. I held up my finger to show her. She glanced at the red mark and nodded, barely interested. After a pause, she spoke again. While I was tidying up, I noticed your property deed doesn't seem to be in the drawer. I nearly laughed. So asking about my cut finger was just the lead-in. The property deed was what she really wanted to ask about. They were watching me like hawks. I'd only just taken it out, and she'd already noticed. When I went out this afternoon, I meant to bring my college diploma to show a friend who might help me find a good job. I was in a rush and accidentally grabbed the property deed instead. I'd prepared that excuse in advance. They weren't fully convinced, but they couldn't push it any further. Uncle Lin spoke up, his eyes full of fake warmth. Make sure you keep that deed safe. It's very important. You can't lose it. I knew what was really behind those eyes. I met his gaze for a split second, then quickly looked away. I know, Uncle. Don't worry. After a little more small talk, I used a headache as an excuse and went back to my room early. I found a padlock in my drawer and locked the drawer where the deed used to be. Then I went online, found a shop that made fake documents, placed an order, and sent them a photo of my property deed. Even with my mind racing, I forced myself to go to bed early. The apocalypse didn't leave me much time. This was going to be a tough fight, and I needed to stay rested and healthy to prepare properly. The next morning, I got dressed, ate breakfast as usual, grabbed my bag, and left. Once I was sure nobody was following me, I drove straight to the bank. Hello, I'd like to apply for a mortgage loan. The receptionist's eyes went wide when she saw the property deed in my hand. This was a big deal for them. Right this way, please. She led me to a priority window with no line. I sat down and handed over the deed. 1 hour later, I walked out of the bank. The property deed was gone from my hands, but my bank account now had 1.6 million yuan. So now I had 2.53 million yuan in total. I wished I could be like those protagonists in apocalypse novels who remember winning lottery numbers after being reborn. But I never bought lottery tickets and never paid attention to that stuff, so that path was closed. I shook my head and laughed. No point daydreaming. The money I had would have to be enough. Time to follow the plan. I got in my car and set the GPS for Showa Village, my mother's hometown. My grandparents had left an old house there before they passed away, and it ended up under my name. I'd been busy with school all these years and had no close relatives left in the village, so I never went back. 2 hours of driving through winding mountain roads later, I finally reached the village entrance. A wooden sign with faded white paint read, Showa Village. Trees surrounded everything, and the entrance was so narrow only one car could squeeze through. I let out a long sigh. This place was incredibly remote. It felt like something out of an American horror movie. But remote was exactly what I needed. For an apocalypse shelter, the more isolated, the safer. I drove slowly into the village. A narrow road with forest on one side and farmland on the other. Houses started appearing about half a kilometer in, but they were scattered far apart. The closest ones were still 700 or 800 meters from each other. Between them were patches of woods and fields. Some field had crops, some were overgrown with weeds. Many houses were abandoned, making the whole village feel empty and deserted. My grandparents' house, my house, was at the very back of the village. I drove through all of Showa, past one last stretch of dense forest, and reached the end. A tall mountain stood ahead. My old house sat halfway up the slope. The incline was gentle. I followed the old path and parked right outside the courtyard gate. The iron gate was covered in rust, with a beaten-up padlock hanging on it. I pulled a small key from my pocket, jammed it into the lock, and it clicked open. I pushed the gate open slowly. The courtyard floor was paved with red bricks, with stubborn weeds poking through the cracks. It looked exactly like I remembered. The yard was spacious, at least 100 square meters. On the west side were two small rooms, one filled with old farming tools, the other empty. The rest of the yard was bare. The surrounding wall was built from stacked stones, about 2 meters high. That tall wall was actually because of me. When I was little and stayed with my grandparents, I used to climb over the wall at night to catch fireflies on the hillside. My grandparents got so worried about me sneaking out that they raised the wall to 2 meters. Little me never made it over again. I patted the solid stone wall. After all these years, it was still rock solid. I turned to face the house. It was a single-story stone building. The doors and windows were damaged from age, but the walls were as sturdy as ever. I found the house key in my pocket and unlocked the iron door. When I pushed it open, dust swirled up from the floor, clearly visible in the beam of sunlight streaming through the doorway. I covered my nose and mouth and walked in. Aside from the dust, everything looked exactly the same as when I was a kid. The entrance led into the main hall, a small living room with a red wooden square table and 4 chairs in the center. Doors on each side led to the east room and west room. The east room was the master bedroom, fairly large, with a heated brick bed taking up nearly a third of the space. The west room was a smaller second bedroom. Both were simple, but had big, bright windows. Past the main hall was a long kitchen running the full width of the house. 2 stoves sat at each end, connected to the heated beds in both bedrooms. A bathroom was partitioned off at the far west end of the kitchen. My grandparents had it built specially for me because I refused to use the outdoor pit toilet as a kid. The fixtures were old and worn now. "Looks like everything needs replacing," I muttered, pressing the cracked toilet flush button. I turned on the faucet. Clear water gushed out immediately. I splashed some on my face. Cool and refreshing. The house was connected to a well in the courtyard that drew underground spring water from the mountain. Clean and sweet. I walked out of the bathroom and went straight to the west side of the kitchen, next to the stove. I shoved aside the brooms and shovels piled in the corner and pulled up a floor tile. This was the entrance to the cellar. To keep it hidden, the wooden cover had a matching tile glued on top. Unless you looked carefully, you'd think it was just regular flooring. I looked around, grabbed a box of matches from near the stove, and struck one. It lit. I dropped the burning match down into the cellar. It didn't go out immediately, which meant there was oxygen down there. I turned on my phone flashlight and climbed down the ladder. The cellar was deep but small, only about 10 square meters. The temperature was noticeably cooler, maybe around 20 degrees. Underground spaces were like that, warm in winter, cool in summer, staying at a steady temperature year-round. It was too dark to see much. I felt along the wall until my fingers found an iron plate. I pressed it, and it popped loose with a click. Behind it was a small iron door. On the other side of that door was a cave, a natural rock tunnel heading north, straight into the mountain behind the house. I crouched through the small door and stepped into my favorite childhood playground. The cave was about 2 meters high and over 200 meters long. I used to love playing in here, warm in winter, cool in summer, and when I ran, my footsteps would echo off the walls. My grandfather had discovered this natural cave before he built the house. Back then, nobody cared about the empty mountainside, and old folks could build wherever they wanted. Grandpa chose this spot specifically because of the cave. He built the house right outside it, claiming the cave as his own. It served as a natural cellar, no need to dig one. And a natural rock cave was far sturdier than any hand-dug earthen tunnel. Good thing the old man liked getting a good deal, I said to myself. He really left me something priceless. At the far end of the cave, the passage was blocked by a wall of large boulders piled together. Small gaps between the rocks let in fresh air and faint traces of light. There had to be an opening to the outside. With some digging equipment, I could probably break through. But I wouldn't do that. If I opened it up, someone might find this place. Keeping the rocks piled up was much safer. I retraced my steps, sealed the cave door tightly, and climbed back up the cellar ladder. I dusted off my hands, completely satisfied. There was nothing like a familiar place. Hiding out here during the apocalypse made me feel incredibly safe. In my past life, I never had the chance to come back. I'd been stuck in that basement with those ungrateful wolves. This time, I was going to live comfortably in this solid old house and ride out the apocalypse in style. It was getting dark, so I headed home. I locked up the old house carefully and drove back to the city. It was 7:30 p.m. when I arrived, not too late. I stopped first to pick up the fake property deed I'd ordered online. I'd had it delivered to a different address, not our usual pickup point. If any of them had grabbed that package, I'd be exposed. As soon as I parked, my phone rang. It was Warner. "Sis, why aren't you home yet? We're all waiting to eat with you." Her sweet, affectionate tone came through the speaker. I frowned. That voice was nothing like the one she used when she beat me with a steel pipe. "I'm downstairs already." I hung up and went upstairs. The moment I opened the door, the smell of home-cooked food hit me. "Little Shu, come eat." I'd just finished cooking. Aunt Qingmei called out warmly. For a split second, I felt confused. The warm lighting, the familiar food smells, her gentle voice. This had been my most comforting memory for years. But then I remembered. After the apocalypse, every bit of pain and humiliation had come from these same people. I looked down to change my shoes and let a flicker of mockery cross my eyes before hiding it again. But I really was hungry. I hadn't eaten on the drive back because I was afraid coming home too late would make them suspicious. There was still a long time before the apocalypse, and if they caught on to me now, it would ruin my preparations. Then an idea hit me. What if I just sent them away? The four of us sat around the dinner table. 4 dishes and a soup. Braised ribs with dried beans, braised pork belly, spicy shredded potatoes, tomato and egg stir-fry, and clam tofu soup. Wow, all my favorites. "Thanks, Auntie." I put on my usual happy act. When Qingmei tried to serve me food, I frowned, looked into my bowl, and got up. I took my bowl and chopsticks to the kitchen sink and scrubbed them thoroughly under running water. "What's wrong, little Shu?" The bowl wasn't washed properly. There was something dark in it. "I'm just rinsing it off." I scrubbed everything as hard as I could. The food was shared by everyone, so they couldn't poison that, but my dishes and chopsticks were the one thing they could tamper with. The chances were low right now, but I wasn't taking any risks. I made a mental note to avoid eating with them altogether starting tomorrow. I sat back down and finally started eating. "Ahem, little Shu, I was cleaning your room today." "Why is your door locked?" Qingmei asked, clearly bothered. Yesterday, she noticed the missing property deed. Today, she found the drawer locked. She was uneasy. Didn't you tell me yesterday to keep the deed safe?" I was worried about burglars, so I locked it up. I'd prepared that answer in advance. But I hadn't expected her surveillance to be this thorough. Day 1, she noticed the deed was gone. That could be a coincidence. But day 2, she was already checking if my drawer was locked. She must be monitoring me every single day. How had I been so clueless in my past life? I was quietly relieved I'd locked it. Otherwise, she would have found the fake. Oh, silly me. I forgot I told you that. You're such a good girl, little Shu. I say something and you do it right away. Warner, you should learn from your sister and listen to me more. Wana pouted and nibbled daintily on a rib. Sis has always been the responsible one. I could never be like her. As long as she likes me, that's all that matters. That kind of talk used to make me think she was adorable, like a kid who never grew up. Now it gave me goosebumps. This was the right moment. I brought up my plan. "Andy, Wana, how would you feel about going on a trip?" "A trip? I want to go." Wana was immediately excited. "Trip?
You don't even have a job.
Where's the money for traveling? Qingmei shot Wana a look. I smiled. Wana only went to the neighboring province after graduation. She hasn't seen the South yet. How about a graduation trip? Qingmei caught on immediately. Whenever I brought something up, it meant I was paying. Wouldn't that be really expensive? She asked, testing the waters. Not at all. I saw today that Liuya is running a tourism promotion. Flights are on sale at 70% off right now. The economy's been rough, so tourist cities are all doing discounts. Wana practically jumped out of her chair. I want to go. I want to go. Qingmei could barely keep her smile down.
So,
when would we leave? You, uncle, and Wana should go together. I just got a lead on a job through a classmate. I have interviews coming up, so I can't go. The instant I said I wasn't going, Qingmei panicked. If I wasn't there, who was paying? If you're not going, then we won't go either. It wouldn't be any fun without you. Sure. The real reason was she didn't want to spend her own money. You and uncle raised me all these years, and I've never properly repaid you. Wana just graduated. You should all go enjoy yourselves before she starts working and has no free time. I'll cover the flights, the hotel, and all the other expenses. Just keep track of what you spend, and I'll reimburse everything when you get back. I delivered that speech like I meant every word. And honestly, it wasn't made up. I'd planned the same thing in my past life, but then the apocalypse hit and I never got the chance.
well,
Would it cost a lot? I'm worried we won't have enough to cover things up front. Qingmei, the old fox, was afraid I wouldn't actually pay them back. Wana whined. Mom, I really want to go. My heart bled as I forced out the words. The money my parents left me is in a fixed deposit that matures in 2 months. I'll give you 20,000 up front for now. Whatever else you spend, just cover it first, and I'll pay you back once my deposit unlocks. Deal. The moment I offered 20,000 up front, they figured the rest of the reimbursement was probably real too. Aunt Qingmei couldn't agree fast enough. All right. Little Shu is so thoughtful, much more sensible than Wana. Uncle Lin said he wasn't interested in traveling and would stay behind. I knew what he liked, so I played my card. Uncle, come on, just go with them. I heard Liuya has a jade market. Pick out a nice stone, and I'll pay for it when you get back. The moment I said jade, his eyes lit up. Qingmei jumped in too, pushing him to go. Before he could even answer, I pulled out my phone and transferred 20,000 yuan to Qingmei. She grinned ear to ear. A free vacation. Why wouldn't she go? She'd known me long enough to know I always kept my word. If I gave the 20,000 up front, I'd definitely reimburse the rest. After dinner, Wana was so happy she volunteered to wash the dishes. I went to my room. Behind me, I heard Uncle Lin whisper to Qingmei. We haven't seen the property deed in 2 days, and now she's suddenly sending us on a trip. Something feels off. I'm not going unless I see that deed. In my room, I quickly put the fake property deed into the drawer. Right on cue, Qingmei knocked. Little Shu, I brought you some fruit. I let her in and smiled. She made small talk, then casually steered toward what she really wanted. How come the lock on your drawer is open? Oh, I was just reading some old diaries I wrote as a kid. I pulled the drawer open, took out a diary, and waved it around. She barely glanced at the diary. Her eyes went straight past it to the property deed sitting in the drawer. I noticed her look, so I pulled the deed out myself. I'll keep this safe, don't worry. Even flipped it open to show her my name and the address of our apartment complex. She was completely reassured. Why would I mess with the apartment I was living in? After a bit more chatting, she left. Her husband's worries were unnecessary, or so she thought. I finally relaxed. I lay in bed and started scrolling my phone, thinking about how to find a reliable construction team from out of province. Then I remembered my college classmate Chen Mian. He was a homebody and obsessed with doomsday preparation. After graduation, he dedicated himself to building survival bunkers and posting videos about it. He was now a 5 million follower internet celebrity. I'd recently seen a video where he'd built a high-end underground fortress and mentioned some team. I messaged him directly. You around? Do you know any good construction teams? He replied instantly.
Yeah.
Did you see my recent video? That team was great. How much? Mine was expensive, big area, underground, over 3 million total. But the manager told me they just finished a mansion bunker project for some rich guy and have leftover materials. The team is German, and they're trying to head home soon, so they're looking to unload everything cheap. Want me to ask? When I heard 3 million, my heart sank. But unloading cheap gave me hope. Yes, please ask. 20 minutes later, Chin Mian sent me a contact. I checked, they're still selling. Told them you're my friend. Add him yourself. I thanked him and added the contact. The profile picture was a construction company logo. I looked it up, it was a legit, high-end international firm. After introductions, the manager explained, we're a private German security systems team. We came to install a fortified system for a wealthy client's villa. All materials were shipped from overseas. We have surplus and shipping it back would be expensive, so we'd rather take on a small project and use it up. He sent photos of smaller projects they'd done for reference. I looked them over, then called him. I made sure they could handle not just structural reinforcement, but also things like building a heated brick bed and a fireplace. We agreed on a time. He'd come see my property tomorrow. That was enough for one day. I put down my phone and fell asleep fast. The next morning, my uncle, aunt, and Warner were packing and planning their route. They'd booked flights for May 23rd, tomorrow. I used my job interview excuse and left again. 2 hours later, I was standing in a high-end building materials warehouse in the neighboring city. A short man in black-framed glasses and a black suit was waiting at the entrance. Miss Lin, that's me. Hello, I'm the head of the RK team. Let me show you our materials. He led me into a sectioned-off area filled with construction materials and started explaining each one. I didn't really understand most of it, but I'd crammed some knowledge online during the drive. I touched and tapped things the way the internet told me to. The quality was definitely top grade. When he finished, I asked about pricing. The exact cost depends on the renovation plan. How about I visit your property tomorrow, do a site inspection, and give you a comprehensive quote based on your requirements? That was fair. He'd need to see my rundown old house before he could put a number on it. We agreed on noon tomorrow for the visit. I didn't waste any time and took the high-speed train home. Those three were leaving for Lyoya tomorrow, and I needed to get home early tonight, act normal, and make sure they left without suspicion. By the time I got back, they'd already packed 3 suitcases and were just waiting for their 8 a.m. departure. The next morning, I drove everyone to the airport myself. To my surprise, Tang just showed up holding flowers. I frowned. I'd almost forgotten about him. What are you doing here? He handed me the flowers with a big smile. I heard your uncle and aunt were going on a trip, so I came to see them off. This was my chance. I'm in the middle of job hunting and can't go with them. Could you go in my place and look after them for me? Wana was thrilled. Without me around, she and Tangja could be together openly. Tangja pretended to hesitate but agreed. He'd actually wanted to go from the start, but Qingmei had told him to stay behind and keep an eye on me. Now that I was the one asking, even Qingmei and Uncle Lin went along with it. I watched them pass through security and made sure they'd actually board the plane. Finally, I was free. No more surveillance. Nobody to stop me from stockpiling whatever I wanted. I drove straight to the high-speed rail station, picked up the construction team manager, and headed for Showa Village. When he saw the house on the hillside, his eyes lit up. Great location. You've got good taste. No taste involved, it's just my grandparents' old house. I want to fix it up so it doesn't fall apart. Keep it as a family memory. I showed him around the house and yard, then laid out my requirements. 1. Full top-grade insulation and structural reinforcement for the entire building, especially the courtyard walls and exterior house walls, using high-grade concrete. 2. Replace all doors and windows with insulated, blast-resistant ones. 3. Waterproof the roof. 4. Tear out both heated brick beds and rebuild them. 5. Redo the stoves, with 1 large and 2 small ones on the east side. 6. Build a large fireplace on the east wall of the east bedroom, connected to hot water pipes running through the kitchen and bathroom. 7. Replace everything in the bathroom with long-lasting, durable fixtures. 8. Raise the courtyard wall to 3 meters and add an electric fence along the top meter. 9. Replace the courtyard gate with a high-grade blast-proof door. 10. Cover the entire courtyard and house with a blast-proof glass roof, peaked so water and snow would slide off, and designed to be easy to install and remove. I'd only experienced the extreme cold in my past life, but I wasn't sure what else might come. Acid rain, sandstorms, who knows? Covering the whole yard would keep intruders out, protect against the elements, and give me room to move around even during the freeze. The manager wrote everything down. At point 10, he frowned. Blast-proof glass over the whole courtyard? That alone would be $200,000 just for materials. Your friend mentioned you wanted to keep costs down. Plus, I don't have enough in stock. I'd need to order more from overseas. $200,000 was barely manageable, but from his tone, he seemed to have an alternative. Do you have another option? Something that covers the top completely, lets light through, and is strong. How about high-strength polycarbonate panels? He thought for a moment. They're the best fit for what you need. Much cheaper than blast-proof glass, but over 200 times stronger than regular glass. Sticks and rocks can't break through. They're extremely flexible. Even under heavy impact, they'll bend instead of shattering. I have a batch of quality multi-layer hollow panels with UV coating in my warehouse. They resist ultraviolet rays, slow aging, and last over 10 years. Excellent insulation properties. They're also lightweight, so the support frame doesn't need to be as heavy. The only downside is the transparency fades slightly after prolonged sun exposure, but the light transmission stays good. The cost-effectiveness sounded way better. How much? He held up 5 fingers. Cost price 50,000 yuan. I couldn't believe it. Stronger, insulating, and 150,000 cheaper? I didn't care about a little transparency loss. I'd use it with my eyes closed. Is it flammable? What if someone can't get in and tries to burn the place down? Don't worry. Polycarbonate panels have excellent flame resistance. They won't self-ignite until 580 degrees. That settled it. Let's go with the polycarb. Whatever panels. Good. I've noted all your requirements. I need to go back and calculate the exact cost. I'll call you tomorrow morning. I drove him back to the train station. By 6 in the evening, I grabbed a quick bowl of noodles, bought a hidden camera detector, and went home. The apartment was empty now. I didn't turn on the lights right away. First, I swept every room with a detector.
No cameras.
Only then did I relax, flip on the lights, and get cleaned up. It had been a long day. I lay in bed and started planning my supply stockpile. Instant food, seasonings, clothes, and daily necessities I'd order online. Meat, vegetables, fruit, and grain I'd buy in person. I wasn't sleepy yet, so I made a quick stockpiling list in my phone's notes app and started shopping online. Cold weather clothing came first. I bought 2 professional-grade polar down jackets, windproof, waterproof, rated for -50 degrees. Those cost 4,000 yuan. No cutting corners on life-saving gear. For everything else, I went cheap. Pinduoduo was my best friend. Long down coats, thick cotton jackets, old lady padded coats, military overcoats, heavy cotton pants and tops, 10 of each. Thermal underwear, sweaters, windbreaker jackets, sweatpants, 20 of each. 300 pairs of socks, 100 sets of underwear. 10 cotton hats, 10 scarves, 100 cotton face masks, 50 pairs of cotton gloves. Snow boots, padded grandma shoes, cotton slippers, summer sandals, sneakers, 20 pairs of each. 5 soybean fiber quilts, 5 thick cotton quilts. 30 sets of bed sheets. I bought those all from one store I'd trusted since college. Soft fabric, no pilling, pretty colors. 10 sets in pale yellow, 5 pink, 5 light green, 5 dark green, 5 dark gray. I haggled the price down to 50 yuan per set. 5 memory foam pillows, 5 buckwheat hull pillows. I checked the price of down comforters. Too expensive. There were 2 unused ones at home that some relative had given Qingmei. I'd just steal those later. I bargained on every single item. Including the polar jackets, the total came to 20,000 yuan. I made sure everything I ordered had free return shipping, so I could inspect each item and send back anything that wasn't up to standard. By the time I finished shopping, I was exhausted. I dropped my phone and passed out. May 24th. I slept until I woke up naturally. I grabbed my phone and found messages from Warner and from the construction manager. I ignored Warner completely and nervously opened the manager's message. Miss Lin, my team has calculated the price. Based on your requirements, the original cost would be $960,000. At the discounted surplus material rate we discussed, it comes to $660,000. $660,000. That was acceptable. But sticking to my principle of saving every yuan I could before the apocalypse, I tried to negotiate. Can you go any lower? I'm a little tight on funds right now, he replied instantly. He must have been waiting. Miss Lin, this price really can't go lower. It's already heavily discounted. However, if you're interested, we have a water and power system, newly developed, very advanced, and we can install it for you free of charge. A water and power system? That sounded high-end. And free? I could hardly believe it. I asked if we could talk by phone. Half a minute later, he called. He explained, when I surveyed the property, I noticed the well in your courtyard. This system connects directly to it, purifies the water, and gives you clean running water from the underground source. No more hauling buckets. As for electricity, your house is so far from the city that your power supply must be unreliable. This system generates electricity through solar panels, wind power, and thermal energy. Even during outages, it keeps basic power running. I was secretly amazed. I'd been planning to buy solar panels and store water separately. This system would handle both. What does the thermal power part look like? I asked. During the extreme cold, I'd be heating the house nonstop. If the heating could also generate electricity, that would be incredible. You're building a fireplace, right? We install the power system inside it. When you burn coal in the fireplace, the system captures the excess heat and converts it to electricity. Stock up on coal, and you won't need to pay for power at all. And don't worry, it won't affect the fireplace's heating performance. I was screaming with joy inside. I can accept that, he chuckled. This system was originally priced at $300,000. It's leftover from the mansion project. Once we finish your job, we're heading straight back to Germany, and we don't want the hassle of shipping it home. All I'd ask is that you have your friend Chinmian give us some publicity on his channel. I knew I was benefiting from Chinmian's connections and getting lucky with the timing. Absolutely, I'll make sure he promotes you. When can you start? How long will it take? We're eager to get home. If you agree, we can start tomorrow. About 1 month to completion. We settled the terms. I'd pay a deposit when work began, and the balance when it was done. The moment I hung up, Warner video called me. I hesitated, but answered. Sis, why didn't you reply to my messages? Her annoying voice came through. I swallowed my disgust and smiled. Nobody here to wake me up. I just got out of bed. Look at the photos from last night. We went on a yacht and had dinner on it. It was amazing but kind of expensive. Over 4,000 yuan. She started off excited, then switched to her pitiful act. That's not too bad. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Enjoy everything you can. I'll reimburse you when you get back. For 1,000 yuan. That was 2 polar down jackets. I wonder how much they'd cry when they realized I was never paying them back. You're the best, sis. Can we go scuba diving today? Is that okay? She was testing whether I'd still pay. Sure. Diving sounds fun. Just be safe. Tell me how much it costs later. Okay. We're heading out then. Talk later. Bye, sis. She hung up fast, satisfied she had my blessing to keep spending. After subtracting the renovation costs, clothing, and the money I gave those rotten people, I had 1.83 million yuan left. I checked Pinduoduo. A lot of my orders had already shipped. I'd used the same delivery address as the fake property deed pickup, far from home where my uncle's family wouldn't hear about it. I stretched and got out of bed. Today I needed a truck and a warehouse. My car was a small sedan, useless for hauling large amounts of supplies. A truck was the way to go. I'd load it up, drive it into a garage, and quietly transfer everything into my space. After breakfast, I searched online for truck rentals. Renting one for 2 months would cost at least 6,000 yuan. I changed my thinking. I took the subway to a used car lot instead. A 70% new small truck with about a 1-ton capacity cost exactly 6,000 to buy outright.
No hesitation.
I signed the papers and drove it away. For the warehouse, cheaper was better. I searched short video apps for warehouse rentals and found a bunch of listings. A remote one on the city outskirts was only 100 yuan a month. I called and drove straight there. No wonder it was cheap. The area was completely empty and isolated. A bit rundown, but the space was big.
Perfect.
The more remote, the better. The owner didn't even bother with a contract. He took 200 yuan, tossed me the keys, and said I could use it for as long as I wanted. Too bad, I wouldn't need it past 2 months. The apocalypse would be here by then. Before my online orders arrived, I had something important to do by shelving. From my past life, I knew that small items tossed into the space without shelves just piled up in a mess on the floor. The shelves didn't need to be fancy, just sturdy enough to stand and keep things organized. I opened Xianyu and searched for secondhand shelving in my area. Listings popped up everywhere. Supermarket closed, shelves must go. Selling batch of shelves cheap. Name your price. Warehouse clearing shelves, no bargaining, pickup only. The warehouse batch was the cheapest. I contacted the seller. He had 50 units. 70 yuan each individually, or 2,500 for the whole lot. I drove over immediately. 50 shelves was plenty. I'd use them for food and tools. Bulky items like grain could just be stacked neatly on the ground. The boss showed me the shelves in his warehouse. They were big, all white, and looked barely used. If I wasn't in a rush to clear this space, I'd never sell this cheap. These are worth at least 100 each, he looked pained. I felt the metal thick and solid. 50 yuan per shelf was a steal. I paid on the spot. The boss called over some workers to help load them onto my truck. Even stuffed full, the truck only fit half. I'll take these back first and come for the rest, I said. Driving through the city, I looked around for camera blind spots but couldn't find any reliable ones. To be safe, I drove all the way back to my rented warehouse. I pulled the truck inside, rolled down the shutter door, and only then did I transfer all the shelves into my space. I closed my eyes and used my consciousness to arrange them along the left side of the space, leaving a walkway between each one, wide enough for a person to pass through. That way I could find things easily later. Without stopping to rest, I drove back for the second load. By the time all 50 shelves were neatly placed in my space, I was wiped out. What a low-energy human I was. I couldn't figure out when my stamina had gotten this bad. But I had gotten a lot done. It was already past 5 in the afternoon. I drove the truck home and parked it in a spot outside my apartment complex. Back home, I ordered delivery, ate, washed up, and lay in bed checking shipping updates. Warner sent another video. Her and Tang Zhe learning to scuba dive together while Qing Mei and Uncle Lin sat nervously watching from a submarine tour boat. I sneered and replied, "Amazing. Warner, you're so cool." May 25th. I ate breakfast and drove to Xiaohua village. The construction team was already there, sitting on the hillside outside the courtyard gate. 2 trucks loaded with machinery, and even tents were parked nearby. They planned to live on-site and power through the entire project without breaks. I chatted briefly with the manager, paid the deposit, and the workers got started. I stayed to watch the first day. They removed windows and door frames, smashed apart the old heated beds and stoves with sledgehammers. This was clearly going to be a major project. At noon, the workers took a break and ate the food they'd brought. My stomach was growling too, so I left. The manager assured me before I drove off that his team had an excellent reputation and would do perfect work. I was craving clam noodles again, so I headed to the food alley behind my university. I walked into Granny Lu's shop like I'd done 100 times. Granny Lu, 1 bowl of clam noodles, extra sesame oil and vinegar, and 1 pork loin flatbread. She shuffled out from the kitchen with her little towel. Coming right up, dear. When the food hit the table, the familiar smell made me swallow hard before I even picked up my chopsticks. Granny Lu, can you also make 20 portions of the clam noodles and 20 flatbreads? I'll take them to go. She stared at me. Why on earth would you buy that many? The noodles will get soggy if you take them home. They're for my coworkers. I'm treating them to lunch today. She walked right up to my table with a serious face. Tell me the truth. Are they bullying you? Making you buy food for 20 people by yourself? Her concern touched me, and I couldn't help but laugh. No, Granny, nobody's bullying me. I'm treating them because they took me out for a big meal recently. She relaxed and smiled. Okay, as long as nobody's picking on you. Let me go make them. I'm not sure I have enough noodles. I should have enough. I sat there slowly savoring my clam noodles. The clam meat was plump and fresh, the noodles soaked in thick broth with plenty of sesame oil and vinegar. Absolutely perfect. I had to stock up on as many of these as I could. After the apocalypse, they'd be gone forever. One bowl of clam noodles plus one flatbread came to 20 yuan. 21 portions should have been 420, but Granny Lu only charged me 400. She said my portion was on the house. I didn't argue. I paid and said goodbye. I loaded the 20 portions of noodles and 20 flatbreads onto my car's back seat. It was already dark outside, and I kept the car light off. Nobody could see what I was doing. I reached out and swept everything into my space. Granny Lu was right. The noodles would get soggy if they sat too long. But stored in the space the instant they were made, they'd stay fresh forever. I arranged the noodles and flatbreads neatly on 2 separate shelf layers, leaving room to fill up next time. I didn't leave yet. I drove deeper into the alley and stopped at a rice noodle roll shop, another favorite of mine. Cheap and delicious. Egg rolls were 6 yuan, sausage or beef ones were 8. Auntie, 20 egg rolls, 10 sausage rolls, 10 beef rolls. The shop was empty, so I ordered big.
Total was 280 yuan.
The owner was so happy with the large order she threw in 5 free bottles of cola. While she cooked, I ran next door and bought 10 portions each of fried noodles, fried flatbread, and fried rice, 10 yuan each, 300 total. That was enough street food for today. Any more and I'd attract too much attention. Both orders finished at almost the same time. The shop owners happily helped load everything into my trunk and back seat. I drove to a dark corner with no streetlights, and while nobody was around, I transferred it all into my space. I was a little obsessive about organization. Today's street food all went on one shelf, but on different layers. Clam noodles on the first, flatbreads on the second, rice noodle rolls on the third, fried noodles, and the rest on the fourth. None of the layers were full yet. I'd come back and fill them up next time. The next day, my first batch of online orders arrived. I drove the truck to pick them up. The pickup point was piled high with packages. When I gave the courier my phone number, he stared at me for a few seconds, so I was the one who'd ordered that mountain of stuff. He was nice enough to help load everything onto the truck. Why'd you buy so much? Opening a store? No, it's a donation for an orphanage. He nodded with respect. What a kind girl, he probably thought. I hauled everything to my warehouse, pulled the door shut, and turned on a bright flashlight. Then came the fun part, opening packages. No matter when ripping open packages always felt great. I inspected every single item. Cotton jackets, hats, bedsheets, comforter covers, everything. This was all bought with hard-earned money, and I wasn't going to waste a cent. Anything that passed inspection went back into its bag and into the space, lined up neatly on the shelves. The few items with quality problems went back on the truck for returns. By the time I'd checked everything, I was slumped in the driver's seat, exhausted. I tallied up what needed returning, then reordered replacements on my phone. Every missing piece had to be filled, not one item short. After dropping off the returns, I drove to Showa Village to check on the renovation. The old doors, windows, and heated beds had been completely demolished and cleared away. The next step would be the full insulation and structural reinforcement. Everything looked on track, so I headed home. Home routine: eat, take a nice hot shower, lie in bed. Now that cold weather gear was handled, it was time to stockpile food. I opened Pinduoduo again and worked through my list item by item. Since my space froze time and nothing would expire, I bought more than I actually needed. In a crisis, extra food could be traded. Instant staples: 2,000 bags of instant noodles in various flavors. 200 each of snail noodles, fire chicken noodles, boiled rice noodles, hot and sour noodles, potato noodles, self-heating hot pot, and cold noodles. 1,400 bags total. Semi-prepared staples: 200 bags of vermicelli, 100 jin each of wide noodles, thin noodles, and dried rice noodles, 200 jin of hanging noodles, 30 boxes of plain noodle cakes at 50 per box.
Dried
Vegetables: 100 jin of dried gonkai greens, 200 jin of dried seaweed, 50 jin of dried green beans, 100 jin each of wood ear mushrooms and dried shiitake, 300 jin of dried chili peppers. I planned to stockpile plenty of fresh vegetables later, so I kept dried ones moderate. Canned goods: 1,000 cans of luncheon meat, 500 cans of fish, 1,000 cans of fruit. I'd have plenty of fresh food, but canned goods were, for emergencies, something I could pull out openly, without raising suspicion. Cured meats: 500 gene of cured pork, 500 gene of cured sausage, 300 gene of cured ribs, 100 cured chickens. Hot pot base: 500 bags of assorted types, plus 200 bags of my favorite medium spicy Chow's brand. At one hot pot a month, 700 bags would last me about 70 years. Seasonings: 100 bags of chicken bouillon, 100 bottles of oyster sauce, 100 jugs each of vinegar and soy sauce, 100 bags of MSG, 500 small bags of yeast powder, 200 bags of 13 spice blend. I wanted more vinegar, but hauling it from a pickup point was a hassle. I'd buy more in person later. 300 bags of soybean paste from various brands, plus 100 bottles each of mushroom sauce, beef sauce, spicy sauce, and Laogan Ma, 400 bottles total. 50 gene each of cumin powder, chili powder, sesame seeds, and Sichuan pepper powder. Snacks: 200 boxes of ham sausages in assorted flavors, 500 marinated eggs, 50 boxes of spicy strips, 1,000 bread rolls in various flavors, 10 boxes of assorted candy, 2 boxes of chocolate, 200 jars of spicy boneless chicken feet, 5 boxes of chips, 1 box of compressed biscuits, and roughly 100 boxes total of assorted jelly, cookies, nuts, meat snacks, and crispy noodle snacks. I almost didn't buy compressed biscuits. With all the delicious food I was stockpiling, I'd never touch them. But then I figured I should at least show the apocalypse some respect, so I bought 1 box. 4 drinks: 300 gene of assorted tea leaves, 300 tubs of milk tea powder, 100 tubs each of honey citrus tea concentrate and passion fruit tea concentrate, 100 cases of milk, and 100 tubs of instant coffee. Tea would be a valuable trading currency during the apocalypse. All the food, tea, and drinks came to about 160,000 yuan. I stared at the bill in disbelief. I'd been pinching every penny and still spent a fortune. The cured meats and tea were the biggest expenses. It hurt, but it was worth it. This was either my food supply for the rest of my life or apocalypse currency. That wrapped up the first round of online food shopping. I was so exhausted I nearly passed out. What a wild shopping spree. Heavy items and liquids I skipped online. Shipping costs made them no cheaper. I'd hit a wholesale market in person instead. I slept until 11 a.m. the next day. Warner had messaged again. If I hadn't promised to reimburse her, I'd almost think she actually cared about me. Sis, we went deep sea fishing today. It's 500 per net. How many nets do you think I should cast? She was testing how much I'd pay for. Cast as many as you want. Having fun and eating well is what matters. I just had my own spending spree, so I was in a good mood. Juana saw my cheerful tone and figured she could keep splurging. She knew me well enough. I always kept my word. Or at least old me did. I drove to Shewa village first to check on the renovation. The workers were hard at it, so I left satisfied. Today's mission: grain, salt, and sugar. I drove to the city's wholesale grain and oil market. They also sold bulk drinks and seasonings, all cheaper than retail. Rice: 500 bags, 12.5 tons total. Flour: 200 bags, 5 tons. After discount, 75,000 yuan. Then 2,000 bags of salt, 2,000 jin, and 1,000 bags of sugar, 1,000 jin. Since I was buying in such huge quantities, they offered delivery. I told them to load up and follow my truck. While they loaded, I went shopping for oil and vinegar. 305-liter jugs of corn oil and soybean oil combined, plus 300 bottles of vinegar. The market had good prices on drinks too, so I bought those here as well. 30 cases of hard liquor, 50 cases of sweet wine, 100 cases of cola and Sprite, 50 cases of almond milk, 100 cases of assorted juice, and 50 cases of Rio cocktails in various flavors. I decided my online milk order wasn't enough, so I added another 100 cases. Milk was nutritious, you couldn't go wrong stockpiling extra. They also sold assorted grains. I thought about it and figured I should grab some. What if I suddenly craved sticky rice balls? Or zongzi dumplings? or laba porridge on the holiday. I got 500 gene of sticky rice, 200 gene of sticky rice flour, 100 gene of red beans, 200 gene of mung beans, 100 gene of barley, 500 gene of soybeans, and 500 gene of millet. Total, 53,800 yuan. They agreed to deliver this batch too. I loaded the heavy drinks onto my truck myself and let the market's trucks carry the rest. I drove in front with 3 big trucks following behind. At the warehouse, I directed them to unload everything inside. Once it was all in, I paid the balance. I watched their trucks drive away until they disappeared. Then I rushed into the warehouse. It was more than half full. My truck wouldn't even fit inside anymore. I yanked the roller door shut and swept my hand across everything, pulling all the grain into my space. The moment it went in, dizziness slammed into me. My vision went black. No, my truck full of drinks was still outside. I shook my head hard, forced myself to stay conscious, opened the door, drove the truck inside, and used my last bit of strength to pull the roller door completely shut. Then everything went dark. I collapsed. When I woke up, over an hour had passed. I'd been slumped against the roller door when I fainted. My right leg was completely numb. I pounded on it, grabbed the wall, and pulled myself up. What the hell? This can happen. I was shocked by this side effect. So that's why I'd been so drained lately. Absorbing too much into the space at once overwhelmed my body. Once the numbness faded, I sat in the driver's seat and rested my head on the steering wheel while my consciousness entered the space to organize. All the grain was in burlap sacks. I used my mind to stack them neatly against the walls. Then I climbed onto the truck bed and carefully transferred the drinks into the space, a little at a time. I was terrified of fainting again. It took nearly 30 minutes to get everything in. Back in the driver's seat, I closed my eyes and arranged the drinks. They were easy, just stacked against the wall in neat rows, even tidier than the grain sacks.
I was completely drained.
I'd put way too much into the space today. It was getting dark, and the apocalypse was still a while away. No need to rush myself to death. I drove home, skipped dinner, fell into bed, and was out instantly. May 28th. I woke up early, 6:30 a.m. I couldn't remember when I'd fallen asleep, but my stomach felt like it was eating itself. I ordered delivery and checked shipping updates while I waited. I changed the delivery address to a town near the warehouse this time, so hauling everything would be easier. Food was covered. Now came something even more critical: medicine. During the apocalypse, medicine would be worth its weight in gold. My food orders were almost arriving, so it was the perfect time to order medical supplies. I opened multiple shopping apps and spread my orders across them. The basics first: alcohol swabs, saline solution, iodine, all in bulk. Then the harder stuff: prescription antibiotics, anti-inflammatory drugs, infection fighters. In the apocalypse, those would be lifesavers. The medicines I bought the most of were ibuprofen, amoxicillin, azithromycin, and levofloxacin. Without antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, a bacterial infection during the apocalypse could kill you. Then I ordered medicines for every situation I could think of: cold medicine, frostbite cream, painkillers, fever reducers, anti-diarrhea pills, laxatives, allergy meds, injury ointments, and emergency heart pills. The heart pills were essential. If something went wrong with my heart, those could save my life. I also ordered some supplements, mainly vitamins. For medical tools, a blood pressure monitor, gauze, bandages, band-aids, hemostatic cotton, sterile gloves, small medical scissors, and a scalpel. I was a liberal arts student with zero medical knowledge, but the thought of one day cutting myself open with a scalpel to save my own life felt kind of badass. All the medicine and supplies came to 80,000 yuan. It was a lot, but stored in my space, nothing would expire. Medicine could save my life or be traded as something extremely valuable. I checked my balance. 1.45 million left. Still plenty. Looking at my preparation list, I still needed coal and fuel, diesel, daily household goods, meat, vegetables, fruit, and self-defense tools. Those were the essentials. The smaller stuff could wait.
Coal first.
When I was little, before we moved into an apartment building, everyone in the neighborhood bought coal for winter heating. I remembered a coal yard on the west side of the city, a small place that sold wholesale and retail. Every winter they'd drive through the streets with a big loudspeaker, and people would flag them down to place orders. I drove my car over to the coal yard. The gate was wide open, and a big truck was rumbling out, dropping bits of coal dust through the gaps in its bed. "Don't just stand there, move aside," the old security guard yelled, startling me. I scooted further to the edge and waited for the truck to pass, then walked up to his booth. "Sir, I'd like to buy coal." He glanced at me, a young, pale-skinned girl. Probably figured I wanted 2 or 3 tons. "How much do you want?" 500 tons. Coal was my lifeline for surviving the extreme freeze. With the thermal power system being installed at the house, I needed even more. In the worst case, year-round extreme cold, burning 10 tons a year, 500 tons would last 50 years. If it was still frozen solid after 50 years, I probably wouldn't want to keep living anyway. The guard put down his cigarette and stared at me. "How much did you say?" 500 tons. He picked up his old flip phone and made a call. A minute later, a pot-bellied middle-aged man came jogging out of the yard, sweating from the effort. His forehead and cheeks were shiny with oil under the blazing sun.
Who?
"Who wants 500 tons of coal?" This was big business, and Manager Zheng was eager.
Me.
"What price ranges do you have?" "I wanted good coal, the kind that doesn't smoke much so the house wouldn't fill with fumes during the freeze." He led me into a basic brick building, handed me a laminated price sheet, and turned on a fan. Prices ranged from 800 to 1,150 yuan per ton, with quality varying accordingly. He saw me frowning and thought I found it expensive. "That's the regular price. Since you're buying so much, we can go lower." "Which ones are smokeless?" "These top 2. Both burn clean." He pointed at the 2 most expensive options. I went for the best one. 500 tons of the top grade. "What's the lowest you can do?" "Since you're buying so much, I'll give you 1,100 per ton, 1,000 per ton." "If you agree, I'll pay the deposit right now." He nearly choked. "Miss, you can't bargain like that. At 1,000 I'd lose money. This is premium stuff. You can't compare it to the cheap ones. I really can't go higher." My budget was limited. I had to save wherever I could, but I still needed quality. Good coal meant better heat output, which meant a warmer house. He pulled out his phone, did some calculations, agonized for a while, then gritted his teeth.
Fine.
1,000 it is. Even with thin margins, a 500-ton order was still profitable. He couldn't bring himself to lose a deal this big. "I want only the top grade. If you mix in cheaper stuff, I'll know." He waved his hands. "Miss, when old Zheng makes a deal, he keeps his word. 100% genuine. I won't delay payment. Once all deliveries are complete, I'll pay in full. But you need to deliver to my location. Bag everything in burlap sacks and stack them inside my warehouse." He hesitated briefly, then agreed cheerfully.
Deal.
"I'll cover the sacks and the labor." A customer who paid promptly was worth more than anything. "When can you deliver?" I wanted it as soon as possible. Manager Zheng said they'd spend today loading, deliver the first half tomorrow morning, and the second half the day after. I agreed and paid a 50,000 yuan deposit, with the rest due on delivery. I gave him the warehouse address. The next morning, I was waiting at the warehouse early. Worried about fainting again from overloading my body, I napped in the driver's seat, hoping extra sleep would help me handle the strain. At 9:20, 5 massive coal trucks rolled up. Next to them, my little truck looked like a toy. Manager Zheng hopped down. "Miss Lin, here's 250 tons. Check it out. I picked the best for you, not a single piece of slag." I crouched down, pulled a small knife from my pocket, and poked a hole in the bottom of a random sack. I peered inside. Solid chunks of coal, black and glossy, some surfaces so smooth they reflected sunlight. Good coal. I checked a few more sacks from the middle of the pile. Same quality.
No cheating.
Not bad for a young girl. You know how to check, Zheng laughed. See? I didn't trick you. It's good stuff, I confirmed. The workers used a conveyor belt to move the sacks from the trucks to the warehouse entrance, then stacked them inside one by one. Even with the equipment, 250 tons took a long time. When they finished, I paid 200,000 yuan. Combined with the deposit, that was 250,000 for the first half, paid in full. Zhang grinned from ear to ear and promised the other 250 tons would arrive on time tomorrow. Once their trucks disappeared, I went inside, pulled the shutter down, and started storing the coal. I tested first 30 sacks at once. I moved my arms and legs.
No disinis.
30 was safe. I kept going, touching the sacks and pulling them into the space as fast as I could. Halfway through, my body gave out again. I leaned against the wall, slid to the floor, closed my eyes, and focused on breathing. At some point, I fell asleep sitting there. An hour later, I woke up and entered my space to check on the coal. That's when I noticed something. The space had doubled in size. It was now twice as large as before. I was shocked and thrilled. Could it be that pushing myself to exhaustion actually made the space upgrade? I didn't have time to think it over. I used my mind to move the coal to the far end of the space, completely separated from the food and clothing. Then I stood up and continued storing coal. It was still tiring, but noticeably easier than before. I pushed through until all 250 tons were inside. I barely made it home, collapsed into bed without eating. In my dreams, I made fun of myself. All I did anymore was sleep. The next morning, my body still felt heavy, but I could move fine. I headed to the warehouse to receive the second shipment. The coal arrived around 9 a.m. When Zhang and his workers saw the completely empty warehouse, their jaws nearly hit the floor.
You
moved it all in one day, Miss Lin? Yep. They needed it urgently. He didn't ask any more questions and directed his workers to unload. I checked a few sacks again. Quality was still solid. When they finished, I paid the final 250,000. Zhang and his crew drove off happy. I looked at the warehouse packed full of coal and only stored about a third into my space before I started feeling drained. I stopped immediately. Yesterday I'd rushed because I was afraid the warehouse wouldn't have room, but now all the coal was safely inside the building. No need to push myself. Then my phone rang. Hello, you have no wait, you have several hundred packages. Can you come today? They're piled up outside the station, and we really need you to sign for them. The courier was trying very hard to sound calm. I'd completely forgotten. My food orders had arrived. Sorry, I'm on my way. I drove the truck over. As I got closer, I saw a mountain of cardboard boxes. All of that was mine? I knew I'd spent a lot, but I didn't think it would look like this. Hi, I'm here for pickup. Last 4 digits. 8820. The courier looked me up and a massive list of pickup codes appeared. His eyes went wide. Oh, it's you. Finally. There's so much stuff I was terrified I'd lose some of it. He spotted my truck outside and laughed. Smart move bringing a truck. No regular car could handle this. Sorry for the trouble. Could you help me load up? I scanned the payment code on the wall and sent him 200 yuan. The moment he heard the payment notification, his energy doubled. He shouted into the back room. Xiao Lu, get out here and help. A strong young guy jogged out, climbed onto the truck bed, and the two of them started a relay, one lifting boxes from the ground, the other catching and stacking them neatly in the truck. The courier wasn't obligated to help load, but he did anyway, and I pitched in too, lifting boxes and passing them up. By the time we finished, sweat was dripping off my forehead. The truck bed was packed to overflowing, stacked higher than the sides. The courier gave me some rope to tie everything down tight. I drove to the warehouse. There was just barely enough room to squeeze the truck inside. I locked the shutter door and started transferring food into my space. I didn't want to unload everything onto the warehouse floor first, so I gritted my teeth and pulled it all in at once. My body hadn't recovered from yesterday's 250 tons of coal, and the exhaustion hit hard. I called it a day right there. Drove home, ordered takeout in the elevator, and it was at my door by the time I finished washing up. After eating, I had some energy back, but my mind was still foggy. I lay down and was asleep within minutes. I woke up at 6 a.m. feeling light and fully recovered. I stayed in bed, wrapped in my thick blanket, and sent my consciousness into the space to organize yesterday's food. The moment I entered, I noticed the space had grown again, about 50% bigger than last time. I was thrilled. At this size, it could hold everything I needed. I'd been worried about running out of room and having to leave some coal outside in the courtyard, but now that was completely unnecessary. I sorted the food onto shelves by category. Seeing them packed full gave me an incredible sense of security. I decided to take the whole day off. The past few days had drained me too much. I needed to stay healthy, to keep stockpiling. So I lay in bed all day, alternating between scrolling my phone and napping. A true rest day.
But I didn't waste the downtime.
I shopped for daily necessities from bed. 1,000 lighters, 500 boxes of matches, 50 magnesium fire starters, 500 candles, 50 flashlights, 2,000 packs of toilet paper, 1,000 packs of sanitary pads, 500 packs of overnight pants, 50 cold weather masks, 200 gas masks, 500 bags of laundry powder, 300 bars of soap, 200 bottles of shampoo, 100 bottles of face wash, 100 bottles of body wash, 200 bottles of dish soap, 300 toothbrushes, 500 tubes of toothpaste, 200 towels, 20 bath towels. Then I added 100 boxes of cracking skin cream and 300 bags of snake oil moisturizer. The cream would prevent dry, cracked skin during the extreme cold. Since I'd be making fires and cooking every day, I needed to protect my hands and face. Snake oil moisturizer was cheap, super oily, and incredibly hydrating. The best value skincare product for the apocalypse. I thought about the empty old house and ordered kitchen supplies too. 2 iron woks, 2 flat pans, 5 clay pots, 2 nonstick pans, 2 rice cookers, 1 steamer, 2 full sets of stainless steel pots, bowls, ladles, and spatulas. Then I picked out some things I actually liked. A cream yellow 6-piece dinnerware set, some elegant coffee and milk teacups, and 5 pretty salad bowls. That was enough. I could also bring the kitchen stuff from the apartment. All of that came to 45,000 yuan. Balance remaining, 905,000. By the time I finished ordering, it was noon. I spent the entire afternoon doing absolutely nothing. Phone, sleep, phone, sleep. A genuine full day of rest. The next morning, I was fully recharged. Before I could even plan my day, the courier was blowing on my phone. "Miss Lin, please come quick. Your packages are here again. The station needs rescue." This batch was the medicine, and thankfully the boxes were much smaller than the food shipment. Loading went fast. I drove everything to the warehouse and swept it all into my space in one go. Maybe because of yesterday's full rest, I didn't feel tired at all. I organized the medicine on shelves by type. Another day of feeling safe and prepared. Then I drove to Showa village. It had been a few days since my last visit. When I pulled up, I could hear machinery inside. Workers were sitting on top of the high courtyard walls, welding steel reinforcement bars. The manager was there too, frowning at his tablet over something. He looked up when he noticed me. "Miss Lin, welcome. Don't let me interrupt, I'll just look around." I walked through on my own. The heated brick bed in the east room was already rebuilt, same size as before, still damp and drying. The rest of the work I couldn't really evaluate, but I tried to look professional as I inspected everything. I stayed the whole afternoon just to show I was paying attention and to keep the workers motivated. That night in bed, I placed another order, 300 diesel fuel containers, 20 liters each. The next morning, before the daily supplies and diesel containers arrived, I had something more important to handle: meat. There was a small meat processing plant near the city outskirts that supplied restaurants. Perfect for bulk buying, cheap prices, and easy to stock up. After breakfast, I drove over. Following the GPS, I arrived at a small industrial compound. A sign with gold lettering on a black background hung by the iron gate, Sister Hong's Meat Factory. While I was looking around, the gate swung open and a refrigerated truck drove out. The security guard came to close the gate and noticed a young girl standing there, staring. "Hey, what are you doing standing there?" the guard called out. "I want to buy some meat." He looked me over and almost laughed. I didn't look like the usual business clients who came in wearing suits or rushing around. He probably thought I was some girl who wandered into the wrong place while trying to buy meat for her parents. "We don't do retail here. If you want a small amount, try the market or a supermarket. I want 4,000 jin of pork, 8,000 jin of beef, and a few hundred jin of chicken." He took a deep breath. "You're not joking?" "Not joking. Please get me whoever's in charge." The sun was blazing and I didn't want to stand outside. He quickly led me in, pulling out his walkie-talkie. "Contact Deputy Director Gao. We've got a big customer. A slightly plump middle-aged woman came hurrying out, hand already extended before she even reached me. Hello, I'm the deputy director. I hear you're looking to buy meat. That's right. Let me show you our products first, then we'll talk pricing. She was warm and friendly. I liked her energy right away. All our meat is freshly slaughtered same-day chilled meat, she explained as she led me into the cold storage. It wasn't the frozen solid warehouse you see on TV. The temperature was between 0 and 4 degrees. The pork wasn't frozen hard and still looked very fresh. The quality looked great. I decided to buy here. How much for 4,000 gene of pork? She could barely contain her excitement. Do you want specific cuts or whole pigs? Specific cuts cost more. Whole pigs cleaned with bone-in at 4,000 gene. I can do 8.8 yuan per gene. I raised my eyebrows. Wholesale pork was way cheaper than I expected. I'd been overpaying at supermarkets all along. I'll take whole pigs. But I need to inspect them first and have your people cut them into small pieces sorted by cut. I was not about to do that greasy, messy work myself. No problem. Only thing is, we're sold out today. Can you pick a date and I'll have everything ready? Tomorrow? Done. We'll slaughter tonight, process them, and you can inspect in the morning. I liked her no-nonsense style. Then I asked about chicken. I wanted wings, gizzards, hearts, and feet, not whole chickens. Whole chickens were creepy looking, and I planned to buy free-range ones from a rural farm later. But chicken parts were different, perfect for snacks and barbecue. She took me to another cold storage room. Everything was individually packaged in food-grade plastic bags, some 500 grams, some a kilo, each printed with the factory logo. Clean, neat, professional. I ordered 200 gene of mid-wings, 100 gene of wing roots, 100 gene of gizzards, 100 gene of hearts, 100 gene of feet. All at wholesale price, 7,800 yuan total. I paid a deposit for the pork, loaded the chicken onto my truck, and drove to the warehouse. I closed my eyes and swept all the chicken into my space. It was a small amount, so my body felt fine. I even managed to store another 50 tons of coal from what was still sitting in the warehouse, and I still didn't feel tired. The next morning, I rushed to the meat factory for my pork. This was a critical part of my food supply. Unfortunately, they didn't sell beef. I'd have to try my luck at rural farms later. The guard recognized me now and let me drive right in. A worker led me to the cold storage where 20 big fat pigs hung from iron hooks. The meat was bright and vivid, clearly just slaughtered, extremely fresh. That's 4,200 gene total. If it's too much, I can trim some off, Deputy Director Gao said from behind me. No, 4,200 is perfect. Start cutting, she called out to her workers. Process these, Deb 1, everything except the ribs, sort by cut, bag them in 1 kilogram portions. The crew was skilled. With so many workers, it only took about an hour to process all 20 pigs. Every piece of pork was bagged in the factory's branded packaging, sorted by cut into labeled boxes. Even the bones were chopped into small pieces and bagged. Everything was clean and organized. This factory really knew how to do business. After rounding down, the total came to 36,800 yuan. Director Gao sent a refrigerated truck to deliver everything straight to my warehouse. The workers stacked the boxes neatly inside. Before leaving, they asked nervously whether it was okay to leave meat in an unrefrigerated warehouse. I used my usual excuse. Someone was coming to pick it up soon. This was just a transfer point. Once their truck was gone, I pulled the shutter down and stored all the pork in my space. It was getting late. I drove home. Rest well tonight, keep going tomorrow. June 1st, savings, 859,000 yuan. All the daily supplies packages had arrived. I got up early, trucked everything to the warehouse, and stored it in my space. Today's mission: more meat. There was a village nearby with a chicken farm that covered an entire hillside. The chickens roamed free. We called them strolling chickens in local dialect. The meat was firm and tasty, almost as good as homegrown village chickens but a bit cheaper. I decided this was where I'd buy all my stewing chickens. I drove the truck out, following the GPS until I reached a big patch of woods. In a clearing sat a rural courtyard facing a small hill wrapped in wire fencing to keep the chickens from wandering off. A sign by the gate read, Eggs 8 yuan per jean, strolling chickens 80 yuan each. The eggs were way more expensive than industrial farm eggs, which wholesaled at 3 or 4 yuan a jean. But free-range eggs had to be more nutritious. I decided to buy both kinds, expensive ones here, cheap ones elsewhere. Hello? Anyone here? Silence. I took a deep breath and yelled, "Buying chickens." Something crashed inside, and a drowsy female voice called out, "Coming, coming." A girl about my age stumbled out, wiping drool from her mouth. "Sorry, I fell asleep." She grinned sheepishly. I couldn't help being curious. "Do you run this whole farm by yourself?" "Yep. It's not too hard, actually. I want 200 jean of eggs and 100 chickens." Her eyes went wide. Her little farm had never gotten an order this big. Usually people just came for one chicken at a time, and restaurants thought her prices were too high. They'd buy the cheap 30 to 40 yuan factory chickens instead. She only had around 200 chickens total, and less than 100 jean of eggs saved up. "I don't think I have 200 jean of eggs. Would 80 jean work?" "That's fine."
Give me whatever you have.
"Do you have enough chickens?" Eggs weren't the priority. I could get more from an industrial farm. Free-range chickens like these were hard to find elsewhere. "Chickens are enough." "Yeah, enough. Can you slaughter and clean them for me?" She hesitated. "I sell them live, and I don't really know how to process them. Plus 100 at once." "How about this? Since you're buying so many, I'll knock 5 yuan off each chicken. Then you take them to the house at the village entrance. They do chicken processing there, killing, plucking, gutting, everything for 8 yuan per chicken. So you'd only pay 3 more per bird." "Sound okay?" She'd raised these chickens herself. Selling them was fine, but killing 100 at once was more than she could handle emotionally. I understood.
Deal.
"No problem." She told me to sit in a wrought-tan chair in the courtyard while she went to catch the chickens. I lounged there scrolling shipping updates on my phone while chaos erupted outside. Chickens squawking, dogs barking, the girl yelping and shouting. Over an hour later, her bright voice rang out. "Done. 100 exactly." I hauled myself up and walked outside. A huge spread of chickens lay on the ground with their feet tied together. "Count them," she said, with a few chicken feathers still stuck in her hair. She looked ridiculous. I glanced over the pile. The count looked right. We started tossing chickens onto the truck, counting as we went. Exactly 100. I paid, and she yawned, ready to go back to sleep. I stopped her. "Raise another 100. I'll be back to buy more soon." She blinked, then broke into a big smile. "Okay. I'll fatten them up nice and round for you." I nodded and climbed into the truck. Silently, I hoped those extra 100 chickens would help her survive the apocalypse. Following her directions, I drove to the processing house at the village entrance. Easy to find, a rusty iron sign out front with "Chicken Processing" painted in red. I knocked. A family of 5 was inside eating lunch together. I felt bad interrupting their meal, but I asked anyway.
I na chickens processa.
"You do that here, right?" Sure. Just give me a second to finish this bite." The husband wolfed down his food twice as fast as before and was done in 2 minutes. He wiped his mouth and walked over. "How many?" 100. "How many?" 100, I repeated with a helpless smile. He spun around and shouted into the house. "Honey, eat faster and get out here. I need backup." "How long will 100 take?" The husband checked the time. "If we start now and work into the dark, we should finish tonight. You don't look like you're from this village. No point driving back and forth. Just wait here." I agreed and sat in a corner of the yard while the whole family of 5 got to work. The husband slit throats one after another. Fast and clean. His wife drained the blood. The old couple scalded the chickens in boiling water and plucked the feathers. The smell of wet feathers filled the yard. It wasn't pleasant, but it was familiar. It reminded me of visiting my grandma as a kid, watching her prepare a big rooster for dinner. A huge basin filled with bright red chicken blood. It was a bit unsettling to watch. "You can keep the blood," I offered. "I don't know how to cook with it." The wife looked almost heartbroken on my behalf. "But chicken blood is delicious. How can you not want it?" "I've never been a fan." "You all enjoy it." The husband thanked me eagerly. His wife's chicken blood noodle soup was apparently incredible. His wife nudged him and mouthed something. He quickly said, "Then let us lower the price. It's normally 8 yuan per bird, but since you're giving us all this blood, how about 6? Thanks, that's great." Every bit of savings mattered. I sat in the corner watching them work while admiring the scenery, green mountains and clear water. This village was actually just outside Showa village, closer to town. A bit more mountain road, and you'd reach my old house. After the blood was drained, the couple started gutting, removing gizzards, hearts, and livers, then rinsing each bird thoroughly in clean water. 1 chicken, 2, 3. Hours passed. By the time they finished all 100, it was dark. The whole family helped load the chickens onto my truck. I paid 600 yuan for processing, thanked them, and drove off. Another late night. At the garage, I transferred all the chicken into my space in one go, then went to eat. I'd been living on delivery for days and was sick of it. I drove to my favorite homestyle restaurant and ordered my usual spicy pepper pork, sweet and sour pork, and braised dongpa pork. As good as always. I was starving from the long day and ate fast. Halfway through, I waved the waiter over. "Pack me some dishes to go." 5 orders each of spicy pepper pork, sweet and sour pork, dongpa pork, boiled fish, and braised pork belly. The waiter's eyes went wide. That many. Late-night snack for my coworkers. I'd gotten comfortable with that excuse. While they cooked, I finished my own meal. When everything was ready, the waiter helped load it all into my car, including my own leftovers, no shame in that. After the apocalypse, these would be treasures. I drove near my apartment, casually reached over to the passenger seat, and swept all the packaged food into my space. At home, I showered and collapsed into bed. Warner had sent a dozen messages, vacation photos, and sentimental lines like, "Wish you were here." I forced myself to reply, "Have fun. Make it worth the trip." She responded instantly with thanks. I sent back an emoji and closed the chat. I opened my notes app and checked what was still missing: gasoline, vegetables and fruit, and self-defense weapons. Those 3 were non-negotiable. It was only June 1st. 30 days until the heavy rain began. Plenty of time. I'd been running nonstop for 10 days, and looking at the breathing room I'd created, I finally felt some relief. I was honestly impressed with myself. I'd gotten an incredible amount done. I fell into a deep, relaxed sleep. June 2nd. Today's plan: stockpile vegetables from the countryside. Over breakfast, I noticed my online order of fuel containers had arrived. I picked up the diesel containers from the courier station, loaded them onto the truck, and drove to the warehouse. I stored 280 containers in my space and kept 20 on the truck. Then I headed for the countryside. Every time I passed a gas station, I stopped to fill 2 containers. You needed a reason to buy fuel in containers, so I told each attendant my friend's car had broken down on the road and I was bringing them gas. It worked perfectly. They logged it and sold without fuss. But I limited myself to 2 containers per station to avoid suspicion. After each purchase, I immediately stored the fuel in my space. That stuff was too dangerous to leave sitting around. 5 gas stations, and 3 hours later, I finally reached Yangtown, a farming community known for agriculture and cash crops. The perfect place to stock up. Yangtown was famous for its vegetable greenhouses, sweet potatoes, corn, and watermelons. The special soil here made everything taste sweeter than other places. Unfortunately, it was early June and the sweet potatoes, corn, and watermelons weren't ripe yet. That wouldn't be until late June. No problem. I'd come back for those later. Right now, vegetables came first. I parked on the roadside and politely asked a passerby which greenhouses had the best produce. Nanshan greenhouses and Yangshu Gully greenhouses, good quality, cheap prices. Without hesitation. Nanshan was closer, so I headed there. Rows of long, wide greenhouses covered the hillside. Each one had a small house attached at the end where the caretaker lived. Nobody was outside, so I walked to the first little house. An old man sat inside, fanning himself and listening to the radio. "Sir, I'd like to buy vegetables." "What?" The radio was too loud. I repeated myself.
He heard me this time.
"Oh, follow me to the boss." 3 greenhouses later, I was slightly out of breath when we finally reached a farmhouse hidden among the rows. The old man shouted, "Boss Lin, someone's here to buy vegetables," then shuffled off with his fan. A middle-aged woman came out wearing an apron and arm sleeves, apparently in the middle of cooking. You're buying vegetables? What kind? I'll take you. What do you have? I want pretty much everything, she started listing. Cucumbers, tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, celery, bok choy, baby cabbage, crown daisy. She had too many to count. How much per jean? Depends on how you buy. Retail, leafy greens are $2.50 a jean, other vegetables too. Wholesale is cheaper. Wholesale. I want half of everything you've got. I could have taken it all, but I didn't want to clean her out completely. She needed something to keep going. All of it. Her voice shot up. My company is hosting a large event. We need to prepare a lot of food. I made it up on the spot. She was so stunned she started talking in circles. Then she pulled herself together. If you really want that much, I'll give you everything at $1.50 per jean. Business had been slow this year with few bulk buyers. Selling half her stock at once with minimal waste was a great deal for her.
Deal.
I brought a truck. I'll load up one truckload at a time and pay per load. No problem. I'll get some people to help. She thought I was wonderfully straightforward. Her young son ran off to fetch help and came back with 2 men and a woman, her husband, her older brother, and her sister-in-law. This girl really wants that much? Her husband asked in disbelief. The sister-in-law came over to chat with me. She figured I must be a company purchasing agent. A cushy job for someone my age. Just regular work. It's exhausting, honestly. I put on a tired smile. Do you have a boyfriend? My sister's son just graduated, works at a state-owned company in the city, still single. Sorry. I'm already married. My kid is in 2nd grade. What? You don't look old enough for that. The boss cut in. Stop bothering her. Come on, let's go pick vegetables. She handed out gloves and dragged everyone to the first greenhouse. The first 2 greenhouses were packed with eggplant and tomatoes. Perfect, the most versatile vegetables. Great stewed, great stir-fried. You're sure you want half? She wanted to confirm before they started picking. Absolutely sure. Go ahead. I'm worried it won't be enough. The brother and sister-in-law stayed to pick tomatoes and eggplant while the boss and her husband took me through the remaining greenhouses. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th were leafy greens. The 6th and 7th had cucumbers, Chinese cabbage, green beans, basically every common vegetable you could think of. After confirming I wanted half of everything, all 4 of them got to work. I grabbed a little stool, sat in the middle of a greenhouse, and watched them pick while listening to their chatter. How long are we going to be at this? The sister-in-law complained. Sis, can't you spend a little money and hire someone instead of working us to death? I'm only selling at $1.50 a jean. If I hire someone, what profit is left?
Keep working.
I'll stew meat for you tonight. The promise of meat sent the sister-in-law into overdrive. The brother watched his wife go wild and muttered to the boss's husband. Look at your wife. She's working mine like a donkey. The boss's husband was a quiet man, just chuckled at everything. The boss turned to me. Bored sitting there? Pick a couple little tomatoes and eat them. They're good raw. I was bored, so I grabbed 2 yellow tomatoes, rubbed them on my shirt, and took a bite. Sweet, juicy, with a rich tomato fragrance. Delicious. I stared at the yellow fruit and wondered why we called them red tomatoes when these were clearly yellow. The sister-in-law was still scheming about her nephew. Such a pretty girl. Shame she's married. The boss elbowed her. Stop staring at the girl like some old creep. They both broke into mischievous giggles. They made me laugh. I'd been wound so tight from days of frantic stockpiling, but in that moment, I actually relaxed. If the apocalypse ever ended, I wished I could live like them, growing things, having a couple of friends. Why is it so hot this year? It's never been this bad, the sister-in-law complained, sweat pouring down her face. The mention of strange weather gave me an opening. The weather really has been unusual lately. Don't sell all your vegetables. Keep some for yourselves. If there's a drought or something, you'll want food stored up. Exactly. The sister-in-law jumped on it, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. Things have been weird lately. We really should stock up and hunker down. Everyone started swapping stories about strange things happening around the area. I hope today's conversation might actually push them to save some food for themselves. 2 hours flew by. Several burlap sacks of vegetables were piled at the greenhouse entrance. The boss weighed everything, 2,000 jean total. 1 ton. 1,000 gene of eggplant. 1,000 gene of tomatoes. I scanned the QR code on the wall and sent 3,000 yuan immediately. Hey, I haven't even loaded your truck yet. Why pay so fast? She seemed almost embarrassed. Early or late? What's the difference? Just help me get it on the truck. These were people who worked the land every day. They had serious muscle. In no time flat, a full ton of vegetables was loaded up. Just take this one load today, the boss said. Come back tomorrow for the rest. We'll work late tonight and have everything ready so you can just load and go without waiting. The sister-in-law perked up. Wait, you said you'd stew me tonight. How late are we working before we get meat? The boss elbowed her again.
Hush.
Let the girl talk first. I laughed. Sounds good. Here's a 500 yuan deposit. I'll be back first thing tomorrow. Giving them a deposit would put their minds at ease about picking all those vegetables tonight. What a straightforward girl. Come tomorrow. Everything will be perfect and ready. I said goodbye and drove to the warehouse. After storing the vegetables, I still had time, so I swung by the old house in Showa village. After a few days away, the place had transformed. The heated beds were done, the fireplace was finished, new windows and doors were installed. It actually looked like a home now, cleaner and sharper than before. The manager came over and briefed me on the progress. Everything was on track. I headed home. The next morning I drove straight to the greenhouses. When I arrived, mountains of vegetables were already piled outside. The moment they heard my truck, everyone ran out. You're early. Look, everything's ready. The boss was proud of herself. They'd harvested half of every greenhouse in one night. Is this all of it? It looked like a lot, but I needed more. No, there are 2 more piles over there. She pointed into the distance. I relaxed. The same crew helped load up. This truckload was a full 3 tons, 2,500 gene of cucumbers, 1,000 gene of green beans, 300 gene of squash, 1,000 gene of green onions, 1,000 gene of peppers, and 200 gene of broccoli. The green onions still have their roots attached, the boss said, patting the thick root ends. You mentioned wanting to grow some vegetables at home. Just plant these and they'll keep producing for a long time. Great idea. During the apocalypse, when I had nothing to do, I could grow green onions. I drove the load to the warehouse, a 2-hour round trip. It was far, and I hated the drive. But after what happened in my past life, I would never let anyone discover my space. The extra effort was worth it. The second trip was all leafy greens, 500 gene of crown daisy, 1,000 gene of cilantro, 500 gene of bok choy, 1,000 gene of lettuce, 500 gene of chives, and 500 gene of celery. I settled the full payment, 14,500 yuan including the deposit. I planned to grow some leafy greens myself during the apocalypse for variety, so this amount was enough. This greenhouse didn't grow potatoes, but the boss told me there was a village at the far end of town that specialized in potatoes and sweet potatoes. After storing the second load, I followed her directions to that village. Unlike the family greenhouses, this was a proper, well-managed growing operation. I told them what I wanted, and they pulled ready-to-go potatoes and sweet potatoes straight from their warehouse. 3 tons of potatoes and 2 tons of sweet potatoes cost me 13,000 yuan. By the time I got everything into my space, I was completely drained. I'd expected it. Too much in one day. I dragged myself home, slept hard, and felt much better the next morning. I realized I hadn't stockpiled enough eggs, so after breakfast I drove to an egg wholesaler. 1 ton of eggs for just 6,400 yuan. After storing them, I headed to the town next to Yangtown. Vegetables were covered. Now I needed fruit. Qinjiang town had strawberry greenhouses, and this was the tail end of strawberry season, the sweetest fruit at the cheapest prices. I walked into a greenhouse and heard the owner arguing with his wife. This is the last batch. Find buyers fast or they'll rot in the ground. Perfect timing. Hi, are you selling the whole greenhouse? His eyes lit up like I was a gift from heaven.
Yes.
Yes. I went inside to check quality. The warm, humid air hit my face. I picked a strawberry, wiped it, and popped it in my mouth. Soft, sweet, fragrant. Good stuff. How much per greenhouse? About 200 gene each, not as thick as earlier in the season. How many greenhouses do you have? 5. All ours. I'll take all of them. How much? He couldn't believe it. The most stressful part of every year, selling the last batch, and someone just walked in and bought everything. 6,000 yuan for all 5. Over 1,000 jean total. That's cheaper than any wholesale price, about 8 yuan per jean. At market, quality strawberries went for 12 or 13 even at their cheapest. 8 was a deal. I paid half as a deposit and left while he started picking. The next village specialized in cherries. The hillsides were covered with cherry trees, all in full season. I easily bought 1,000 jean of cherries. Passing another orchard, I grabbed 200 jean of mulberries. Cherries and mulberries together cost 10,000 yuan. Strawberries, cherries, and mulberries all spoiled fast, so over the next 2 days I kept going back to collect fruit. On every trip, I stopped at gas stations along the way and bought 2 containers of fuel each time, another 30 containers in 2 days. Other fruits weren't in season locally, so I went to the wholesale fruit market. Out-of-season fruit shipped from far away wasn't cheap. I checked my balance and knew I couldn't go wild. I walked around comparing prices and tasting samples, then bought from different stalls. 1,000 jean each of apples, bananas, grapes, and mangoes. 500 jean each of pears, mangosteen, longan, lychee, and lemons. 500 pineapples. 100 durians. 800 jean of cherries. Total, 63,000 yuan. I stopped there. Anything else I either didn't like or simply wasn't available. It took ages to get all the fruit into my space. I checked my list. For food, the only things left were watermelons and corn, not ripe until late June, and beef. Since the meat factory didn't sell beef, I asked around and found a well-known beef stall that slaughtered 1 cow every morning and sold it throughout the day. Beef was 28 yuan per jean, any cut. Can I get a discount for a large order? I'd said that sentence more times in the past 2 weeks than in my entire life. Depend how much you want. The butcher wiped his hands with a grin. 8,000 jean. Beef was my absolute favorite. Grilled beef, hot pot beef, beef stuffed buns. I could never get enough. 8,000 jean would last me into old age. 8,000. I'll need to slaughter 15 cows for that. How about 26 per jean? He was a little surprised but took it in stride. His reputation meant people regularly ordered whole cows. 26 was fair. Could you separate the cuts and bag them individually? Of course. That's literally what we do. How else would I justify the markup? I liked his honesty. I paid a deposit and arranged pickup for the next day. Since it was still light out, I drove to the old house. The renovation was really taking shape. The manager said about 10 more days until completion. I was excited to see the final result after spending so much money. The next morning, I picked up my 8,000 jean of beef. The butcher had meticulously sorted every cut into separate bags with labels. Even the bones were chopped and packed into large boxes. Beautiful work. I paid in full, thanked him, and rushed the truckload straight to the warehouse. Only after storing everything in my space did I feel secure. With the beef done, there was just one category left: self-defense weapons. I'd researched online for a long time, but couldn't get my hands on any real firearms. I'd have to settle for other tools. Online purchases seemed unreliable quality-wise, so I drove to a large sporting goods store. I walked out with 2 high-end compound bows, the best in the store. For self-defense, I wasn't cutting corners. The bows cost 30,000 yuan. I also bought 2 military-style folding shovels and 2 hiking poles. Total for weapons, 35,000 yuan. June 11th. Balance, 483,000 yuan. All the essentials were pretty much covered. Now I needed things for long-term sustainability, starting with seeds. The moment I opened my eyes, I started ordering. Every common vegetable and fruit seed I could think of: cabbage, bok choy, crown daisy, cilantro, green onion, chives, garlic seeds, 30 bags each. Carrots, white radish, tomatoes, cucumbers, green beans, pumpkin, winter melon seeds, 50 bags each. Garlic and ginger seeds, 30 bags each. Watermelon, cherry tomato, strawberry, blueberry seeds, 30 bags each. Rose, jasmine, Chinese rose, and chrysanthemum seeds, 10 bags each. 100 gene of corn seeds. 100 gene of peanut and sunflower seeds. I had enough stored grain to eat for ages, so I skipped cereal crop seeds. But I did stockpile fertilizer and pesticide, 20 sacks of compound fertilizer and 10 cases of pesticide. I didn't really know proper dosages, but since I was only growing vegetables and not acres of grain, it should last years. If the apocalypse dragged on beyond that, I'd learn to make fertilizer myself. I also needed containers. During the extreme freeze, I couldn't go outside, so all growing would happen indoors. I ordered 20 rectangular plastic planting boxes, 30 by 50 centimeters, 5 hoes and 5 small shovels for indoor use. For the future, if the apocalypse ended and I could garden outdoors, I bought farming tools, 10 each of iron pickaxes, shovels, rakes, axes, and brush-cutting knives. 3 telescoping ladders, 3 saws, 3 hammers, 10 sickles, and 5 whetstones. 3 heavy-duty pushcarts and 1 pedal tricycle at 600 yuan each, 2,400 total. Seeds and tools altogether, 12,000 yuan. The tool seller even threw in a thick stack of sandpaper as a bonus. My phone buzzed. A voice message from Warner. Sis, we've been here 20 days now. Dad wants to go home. Should we keep playing or listen to him? Obviously, Uncle Lin was done with the vacation, but Warner wasn't ready to leave and wanted me to convince him to stay. I frowned. My stockpiling was mostly finished, but I still had odds and ends to buy. More importantly, there were still 20 days until the apocalypse. If they came back now, they might discover what I'd been doing. I called Uncle Lin directly. Uncle, how's the trip been? Pretty good. Thanks for sending us, little shoe. But it's too hot here, time to head home. He sounded determined. I needed to hook him through his hobby. Did you buy any jade stones? Did you cut any open? How'd it go? A heavy sigh on his end. I spent 30,000 yuan and didn't get a single good cut. Total loss. Thank goodness you're covering it. Huh. Maybe it was just bad luck that day. How about you buy one more piece? Don't gamble on a raw stone this time. Just pick a nice finished jade you like. I'll reimburse up to 50,000 yuan. Just be patient and let Annie and Warner enjoy themselves a bit longer. You flew all the way there, don't waste the airfare. Even while lying, I kept the number believable. 50,000 was probably the maximum they'd think I could afford. Silence on his end for a while.
Then, all right.
I'll go browse again tomorrow. Let the girls have their fun. We exchanged pleasantries and I hung up. Then a message from Tang Zhe popped up. We hadn't spoken in ages. He'd probably been too busy enjoying himself with Warner to remember to sweet-talk me. Little Shu, how's the job search? I miss you so much. I'll bring you a nice gift when we get back. I curled my lip. Every ounce of feeling I'd ever had for Tang Zhe had been burned away during those months of torture. All that was left was hatred. His message just made me feel sick. But I played along. I miss you too. Take good care of Warner and everyone. I'll thank you properly when you get back. I put down my phone, washed up, and headed out. I had real work to do today. I'd stockpiled coal for fuel, but I hadn't gotten any kindling or firewood to actually start fires. On the city outskirts, many people still lived in single-story houses and heated with brick beds, buying firewood from local suppliers. There weren't any proper firewood shops, you had to ask around. I stopped 2 people on the road before finding my lead. A family on the far east side of the outskirts made their living cutting and selling firewood from the mountains. I walked into their rundown but spacious yard. The walls were lined with neatly stacked bundles of firewood and burlap sacks of kindling. I knocked on the door. A little face poked out, a small girl with pigtails, her cheeks smudged black and white. Are you buying firewood? Her eyes were bright, and her voice was clear despite the dirty face. I smiled. Yes, I'm here for kindling. You'll have to wait. Grandpa went to buy tofu. Her head popped back inside, and the door closed gently. She didn't invite me in. I wasn't offended at all. I was actually impressed. Good parenting. A little girl home alone should absolutely be cautious with strangers. A moment later, footsteps at the gate. An old man in his 70s limped in carrying a block of tofu. You're here for firewood? He looked pleased to see a customer. Not many people bought firewood in summer, and his stock kept piling up. Yes, but I don't need logs. I'm looking for kindling, the easy-to-light stuff for starting fires. Yes. Yes. Pine needles and pine cones work, right? The old man nodded eagerly. Dried pine needles and cones burned great, low smoke, and caught fire easily. I'll take everything you've got. He pointed at the pile of burlap sacks along the wall. Those are all pine needles mixed with pine cones that I gathered from the mountain. 5 yuan a sack. I've got about 30-something. I'll take them all. He was thrilled. Fewer and fewer people lived on the outskirts these days, and firewood sales had been drying up. Today's money meant he could buy his little granddaughter something extra for dinner. 36 sacks of dry pine needles, 180 yuan. We loaded them all onto my truck together. Afterward, he insisted on giving me 2 bundles of firewood for free. I tried to refuse, but he wouldn't hear it. You bought so much. This is a gift from Grandpa. Just take it. I'd originally planned to buy kindling here and then get scrap wood from a furniture factory. But seeing how kind the old man was, I decided to buy half his firewood too. 8 yuan per bundle, 50 bundles. After paying, I said, I'll come back for more soon. Could you go up the mountain and collect more pine needles and firewood for me? The extreme cold was coming. I didn't want to leave them with nothing to burn. Sure. I'll go tomorrow. Today he'd earned 580 yuan from me. For the 2 of them, that was huge. He was already planning what to buy his granddaughter: pens, notebooks, candy, maybe even a box of milk. The little girl finally opened the door and peeked out, blinking her bright eyes. Thank you, big sister. Now we can buy a whole bag of rice. They'd been so tight on money lately that they bought rice by the gene. Today's earnings meant they could finally get a full sack. My heart ached. I paused, then pulled 500 yuan in cash from my pocket. Consider this a deposit for next time. The weather might get bad soon. Use the money to stock up on rice. No, just pay me when you come back. He'd never taken a deposit for firewood. Please keep it. Chop extra for me. I don't know exactly when I'll be back. And if it rains, store my firewood inside, so it doesn't get moldy. I said that for a reason. Everyone around here knew he sold firewood. When the extreme freeze hit, people would come to steal it. Keeping it indoors would at least lower the chances. They thanked me as I drove away. I could only help so much. The rest was up to fate. After storing the firewood and kindling in my space, I drove to the back gate of a furniture factory. Outside the back entrance, piles of scrap wood blocks were scattered everywhere. Plenty of material. I'd read online that furniture factories sold waste wood dirt cheap. Good for carving, DIY furniture, or just burning. The catch was you had to butter up the gatekeeper. I was staring at the wood piles when a man's voice startled me from behind. Hey, what are you doing? An old man in a ratty undershirt stood there, picking his teeth like he'd just finished lunch. Behind him was a shabby little guard booth, clearly where he lived. Sir, I'd like to buy some wood blocks. How much are they? As I spoke, I walked up and slipped 2 packs of Lotus cigarettes into his hand. He looked down, and his eyes lit up. Lotus brand, premium stuff for a guy like him. We don't normally sell these. But since you're a polite young lady, 300 per truckload. Take whatever you want. Exactly what the internet said would happen. Thanks. Where do I pay? He pulled out a smartphone, fished out reading glasses from his pocket, poked at the screen with one finger, and showed me a payment code. Just scan this. However many loads you want, do the math yourself. I looked at the wood piles around me and sent him 1,800 yuan. His phone blared. WeChat payment received, 1,800 yuan. What? You want that much? He clearly hadn't expected anyone to buy 6 truckloads worth at once. He probably regretted having me pay his personal account. Luckily, the factory belonged to his nephew. Or he'd be in trouble. Is there a problem? No. Go ahead and load up. There are sacks by my booth if you need them. He stuffed the cigarettes deeper into his pocket and strolled back to his guard booth. I'd paid, so I had every right to be there. I grabbed sacks and got to work. The wood blocks were piled into small mountains. I just held a sack open against the pile, gave a push, and the blocks tumbled right in. A dozen pushes and a sack was full. It was efficient, but after 10 sacks my body was screaming. I stood with my hands on my hips, pounding my aching lower back. I wished I could hire someone to help, but I immediately shut that idea down. The fewer people who knew about my stockpiling, the better. This grunt work was mine alone. 50 sacks of wood blocks. One completely full truck. By then it was nearly dark. Just this one load almost killed me. Every bone in my body felt like it was falling apart. Spending money just to torture myself, I muttered, rubbing my aching shoulders. One truckload had taken half a day to load and nearly killed me. But if I didn't suffer now, I'd freeze to death later. I told the guard I was leaving with the first load. He was napping in his booth and just nodded sleepily. I drove to the warehouse, stored the wood blocks in my space, and completely ran out of energy. A second trip was impossible. Tomorrow. I mumbled weakly and drove home. I was covered in wood chips and sweat. I forced myself through a shower, collapsed into bed, and was unconscious within 5 minutes. Over the next 5 days, I went back and forth hauling wood blocks. On every trip, I also stopped at gas stations to buy fuel. By the end, I'd stockpiled 10 truckloads of wood blocks and 60 containers of gasoline. Looking in the mirror, I'd visibly lost weight in just 1 week. I was about to give myself a day off when the courier station called. My seeds and farming tools had arrived. I dragged my exhausted body out, picked everything up, stored it all in my space, and finally earned my rest. I slept from 10 a.m. straight through to 4 p.m. When I woke up, the exhaustion had faded significantly. Now I felt only one thing: extreme hunger. Time for a proper meal. I washed up, went to the kitchen, and collected all 10 plates from the house, big and small, and stored them in my space on a shelf. Then I drove to a high-end all-you-can-eat Japanese restaurant. This place was my favorite. It cost 479 yuan per person. In my past life, I could rarely afford it, only on holidays or special occasions. I grabbed the menu and started ordering big. 200 slices of salmon sashimi, 200 sweet shrimp, 100 slices of Arctic clam, 100 portions of sea urchin, 5 orders of red wine foie gras, 5 iron plate Angus beef, 8 charcoal grilled lamb racks, 10 cheese-baked crab, 20 cheese-baked shrimp, 10 grilled eel, 5 filet mignon, 8 grilled beef tongue, 20 salt-grilled prawns, 5 tempura, 3 fried pork cutlets. That was enough for round 1. Any more would be ridiculous. The waiter politely reminded me, "Just confirming, this is quite a lot for one person. You might not finish it all. You could order less and add more later." I smiled. "Don't worry, I can finish it." The food started arriving, all freshly made, beautiful and fragrant. I picked up my chopsticks and dug in. This was the most luxurious meal since my rebirth. Salmon dipped in a touch of wasabi and soy sauce, silky, rich, with a hint of sweetness. I ate over a dozen pieces until I started feeling full, but I kept picking up more slices. As each piece approached my mouth, I used my other hand to cover my lips, a natural, polite-looking gesture, and with a flash of thought, the food transferred straight into my space, landing on the plates I'd set up on my shelves. The remaining 100-plus slices of salmon all went into the space this way. I ate each type of food the same way, enjoyed plenty myself first, then quietly sent the rest into storage while covering my mouth. This restaurant had no time limit, so I was in no rush. I put a movie on my phone and ate slowly. After about 40 minutes, round 1 was done. I ordered round 2. Everything from the first round that tasted good, plus 20 assorted sushi. The waiter's eyes widened when she saw the menu. She glanced at my table and the floor around it. Everything from round 1 was completely clean. She'd assumed I couldn't finish the first order, and here I was ordering even more. They'd gotten themselves a competitive eater today. Round 2 arrived. Same technique. Pick up the food elegantly, bring it toward my mouth, cover with my hand, transfer to space. Nobody suspected a thing. It just looked like a well-mannered girl with a polite eating habit. It was summer, I wore short sleeves, there was nowhere for food to hide. The staff were trained not to stare at customers, though my waiter couldn't help sneaking glances. She watched this average-sized girl clear table after table of food. After finishing round 2, I didn't order a third. All 10 plates in my space were completely full, packed with expensive foods I'd normally never buy. 2 rounds had already more than paid for the 479 yuan entry price. A third round would be genuinely unethical, and the quantities would definitely raise suspicion. I patted my round belly. Even though I'd been sending most of it to my space, I'd still eaten plenty myself. Full and satisfied. To help digest, I drove out to the old house. The renovation was nearly complete, just a little more time. I reminded the manager to make sure the courtyard drainage was properly handled, then headed home. June 20th. Balance, 456,000 yuan. I woke up early and entered my space. Seeing it packed full of supplies made me incredibly happy. Over 400,000 still in the bank, all essentials stockpiled. The remaining money would go toward boosting safety and comfort. I snuggled under my blanket, ready for a nap, when my phone buzzed. Warner, sis, Dad absolutely refuses to stay in Liuya any longer. We booked flights home tomorrow. Are you picking us up? My mood soured instantly. I'd been hoping they'd stay in Liuya until the apocalypse hit, then they'd never make it back. But Uncle Lin just had to ruin it. What was so urgent about coming home? Still, it wasn't the worst outcome. I'd kept them away for a month, which gave me enough uninterrupted time to stockpile everything essential. I composed myself and replied, "Oh no, I just passed an interview, and I'm in my probation period. I'm on a business trip to City B with my manager right now. I can't pick you up, but I'll throw you a welcome home dinner when I get back, okay?" After a long pause, the reply came, "Is everything okay at home?" The message was from Warner's account, but the tone was pure Uncle Lin. My business trip excuse had made him suspicious. "Everything's fine. I'll be back in a week at most. No more messages after that." I did the math. June 26th. Overcast, light rain. June 27th. Temperatures plummet rapidly. Rain turns to snow by 7 p.m. Extreme cold begins. July 10th. Lowest temperature hits minus 70 degrees. 1 week from now would be right when the freeze started. The perfect time to go back, clean out the apartment, and disappear. I couldn't do it now. If they came home tomorrow and found the place emptied, they'd call the police, and the police would contact me. But by the 27th, law enforcement would be overwhelmed dealing with the extreme cold crisis. Even if they filed a report, the cops wouldn't have time for something this minor. My mind was made up. I packed my personal things, left the apartment, and checked into a hotel far from the complex. I'd live here for the week. From the hotel bed, I ordered a designated driver service to bring my truck to the hotel's underground parking. Then I called the renovation manager. "Hello, Miss Lin. I was just about to contact you." My heart leaped. "Was the house done?" "Almost," he said with a slightly awkward laugh. "We estimate 3 more days. Then we'll need you to come inspect it. If everything checks out, we'll be heading back to Germany." 3 days was fine, plenty of time. We agreed to meet at the old house in 3 days at 2 p.m. Once I confirmed my truck was safely parked underground, I headed straight to the mall. 1 laptop, 2 tablets, 5 smartphones, 80,000 yuan. Expensive, but I bought models with long lifespans and excellent performance. These would be my entertainment lifeline during the boring apocalypse years. 4 high-performance pinhole cameras, 40,000 yuan. Without hesitation, I stored all the expensive items in my space, then drove back to the apartment. Following the salesperson's instructions, I installed the cameras inside the smoke detectors. Smoke detectors already have a red indicator light, so an extra pinhole camera inside would go completely unnoticed. That done, I left quickly. It wasn't a tiring day, so after lunch, I went to the city's biggest flea market. The place was enormous. Anyone could set up a stall and sell whatever they wanted. In the center was a section for used books. Incredibly cheap, 1 to 5 yuan each. I stopped at a stall run by a teenage boy glued to a mobile game. He glanced up with a grin. "Pick whatever. Left side is 1 yuan, middle is 2, right is 3. Then he went back to his game. I crouched down and examined titles. The books were priced by thickness, not category. Novels, yes. Gardening guides, yes. Handicraft manuals, yes. Medical references, yes. Most of them were exactly what I wanted. Practical books for survival knowledge, entertainment books for killing time. Psychology?
No.
Success guides?
No.
I was planning to be a professional couch potato during the apocalypse. What did I need success books for? I pulled out about a dozen books I didn't want. The boy finished his game and looked at my reject pile with excitement. You want all of those, miss? No. I want everything except those. His face fell, then immediately lit up when the second half registered. All of them? Even this one, postpartum care for sows? I laughed and nodded. Everything. Calculate the price and help me carry them to my car. Over 100 books for 300 yuan. He happily loaded them into my car. I went back and bought another 100 plus from other stalls, mostly practical guides and novels. Around 300 books total. That would keep me reading for a very long time. The flea market was ridiculously cheap, so I kept browsing. Something else caught my eye. One stall had solar panels. The old house renovation already included a power system, but what apocalypse prepper could resist solar panels? They'd be useless during the extreme cold, but once the freeze ended, they'd definitely come in handy. How much for the solar panels? These aren't solar panels, the seller corrected me, slightly offended. They're solar chargers with large backup batteries. They can charge phones, power cooking, even run a TV. The solar charger was the seller's own invention. He liked tinkering and building things, and he was confident his quality matched any big brand. But nobody appreciated his work, and he'd run out of money for new projects. He was selling finished pieces to fund more research. Does it actually work? I asked. Absolutely. 1 day of sunlight powers a household for 3 days. I wouldn't sell it if I wasn't short on cash. He demonstrated everything, how it charged, the battery display, how long it lasted. I was interested. How much? 5,000, 3,000. Hey, you can't just chop my price like that. Before I could respond, something next to it caught my eye, a big lamp. What's that? It's a simulated sunlight lamp. The light is soft and very close to real sunshine. He plugged it into the solar charger to demonstrate. The warm yellow light was bright and strong, perfect for growing vegetables indoors with photosynthesis. How much? I have 2 sets. 1,000 each, 2,000 for both. The lamps and the solar charger, packaged together, 5,000. Take it or leave it, he thought about it. 5,000 would buy him materials for his next invention. He gritted his teeth and agreed. June 21st, 3 p.m. Uncle Lin and the rest rushed home from Liuya. The moment Uncle Lin entered the password and the door unlocked, he exhaled with relief. For some reason, the whole time in Liuya, he'd been anxious that he wouldn't be able to get back into this apartment. Dad, I told you were overthinking, Warner complained. If he hadn't pressured everyone to leave, she'd still be on vacation. Better to be home early, Uncle Lin said, carefully unpacking a jade stone he'd bought for 50,000 yuan. Beautiful quality. Just waiting for me to reimburse him. Qingmei spread all her shopping across the sofa, trying on clothes one by one, thrilled with everything. She just hadn't figured out how to ask me to pay for it all yet. Don't any of you think something's off about Lin's shoe? Uncle Lin brought me up again. What could possibly be wrong? We've watched that girl grow up. She's got a block of wood for a brain. No tricks in her. Once her fixed deposit matures, we'll find a way to deal with her for good. Qingmei's eyes were pure venom. They weren't just after the apartment, they wanted my savings too. When my parents died, my father's lawyer friend Chinweigua had locked all my money in a fixed deposit that wouldn't mature until the year I graduated college. My uncle's family had hated Chinweigua for that, but now the deposit was finally almost due. Meanwhile, I was lying on my hotel bed, watching everything through the cameras I'd installed in the smoke detectors. When I heard Qingmei talking about my savings, I scoffed. They were still waiting for that money. I'd already withdrawn it and spent most of it. My stomach growled. I confirmed through the cameras that they weren't going out, then headed to another all-you-can-eat restaurant, this time a high-end Korean barbecue place with premium ingredients. Naturally, I ordered the most expensive items first. 20 plates of M9 Australian Wagyu to start. I wore my Bluetooth earbuds, watching the surveillance feed on my phone while I ate and grilled. Through my earbuds, I listened to Qingmei's family loudly plotting against me. With my hands, I kept grilling and eating. The Wagyu was tender and perfectly seasoned. I ate some myself and sent the rest into my space. already dipped in sauce, so I wouldn't even need to prepare condiments later. 40 plates of Wagyu, 10 plates of beef tongue, 20 plates of assorted seafood. The waitstaff were just as stunned as the Japanese restaurants had been. They'd never seen a girl eat like this. Every piece went into my mouth, yet I never seemed full. After the feast, my shelves gained another 10 plates of grilled meat and 10 plates of prepared dishes. On the way back to the hotel, I passed a night market and grabbed several portions of barbecue skewers, stinky tofu, and beef noodle soup. At this stage, I was stockpiling whatever I came across. The next 2 days, I focused entirely on gasoline. I filled every remaining container, all 200 of them. Then came the day to inspect the old house. I brought the original renovation checklist and went through every single item. Everything met my standards perfectly. The workers had even dried and cured the heated brick beds. They were rock solid. No wonder this team worked on mansions. Their craftsmanship was excellent. I paid the remaining balance without hesitation. The manager handed me a brand new set of keys. They'd even replaced all the locks, front gate and interior doors, with top-quality ones, free of charge. After saying goodbye to the team, I walked through the renovated house alone, admiring everything. From outside, it looked like any other rural courtyard, just with higher walls and a covered top. Nothing suspicious. But step inside the gate, and the difference was staggering. The iron gate was incredibly thick. The polycarbonate canopy covering the yard was both sturdy and attractive. The house walls were thick and well-insulated. Inside, the heated brick beds looked beautiful, with irregular stone tiles embedded along the sides for a rustic charm. But the real showpiece was the fireplace. It looked exactly like the ones I'd seen in textbooks as a child. It was huge, big enough to warm the entire east room. The fireplace wall was decorated with 2 rings of red brick, and the entire wall had arched patterns made of red brick and stone. It looked incredibly artistic, like sitting in a cozy European cottage, reading the paper with a cup of coffee on a winter day. Everything in the east room made me perfectly happy. I moved on to the kitchen and bathroom. The stove heights were exactly right, built to my specifications. I could stew, stir-fry, and boil water all at the same time. The bathroom was fully tiled, with a simple but sturdy sink. I even found 2 spare shower heads stored inside the cabinet under the sink. That manager really was thorough and thoughtful. The old house's structure was now top-notch. The only thing missing was furniture and daily items. The rooms were pretty empty. During renovation, I told them to toss all the old broken furniture. Only the red wooden table and chairs in the main hall stayed untouched. It wasn't that I didn't care about my grandparents' memory. Survival came first. Better to think about what furniture would last longest than cling to worn-out cabinets. I still needed appliances, furniture, and all my daily supplies were sitting in my space, not yet unpacked. But there was no rush. Once the freeze hit and I was stuck inside, I'd have plenty of time to set everything up. I reluctantly locked up the house and drove back to the hotel. The old house was livable now, but I still had a few more days of stockpiling to do in the city, and the round trip was too exhausting. The next day, I bought 5 sets of top-quality sterile protective suits from a medical equipment store, 25,000 yuan. I only knew about the extreme cold. I'd been tortured to death before finding out what came after. If there were insect plagues or epidemics later, these suits could save my life. Back in the car, I was putting the suits into my space when I froze. My Bluetooth earbuds were still streaming audio from the apartment cameras. When Lin Shu gets back, let's start putting slow-acting poison in her food. Uncle Lin's low voice came through clearly. Then Qingmei chimed in. Agreed. We've been stalling too long. We need to act before she gets too established at work and becomes harder to control. In a couple months, she gets diagnosed with a serious illness, we comfort her, and she'll willingly leave all her savings to us. So that was their plan, give me a fatal disease, then manipulate me into signing over everything. Shameless. I would never leave them a single yuan. My fists clenched so tight my knuckles went white. Between my past life's torture and hearing this now, the hatred burned deep. I angrily closed the surveillance feed. Just then, I noticed a message in our apartment complex's group chat. Tagged to everyone. The weather has been abnormal lately. Extreme conditions may be coming. I happen to have some goods imported from Yakutsk. If any neighbors are interested, I'll sell to you first. Reindeer hide boots and sable fur hats. Below the text were 2 product photos. Handmade reindeer hide boots, the warmest boots on earth, made from camas leather from the reindeer's lower leg. They wouldn't crack even at -50 degrees. 5,000 yuan per pair. Sable fur hats for 3,000, full sable, rated for -50. I'd seen these boots in a documentary before. They went up past the knee, entirely reindeer hide, incredibly warm and durable. I'd wanted to buy some, but could never find genuine ones online. The photos in this group chat, though, looked like the real deal. I researched reindeer hide boots immediately. The images matched, traditional beaded patterns and decorations with strong regional character. I checked the seller's profile. His avatar was a fur coat, his username something about selling premium furs. I added him as a friend. He accepted in 5 seconds. Interested in the reindeer boots? I don't live in the complex right now. Can you bring them somewhere for me to inspect in person? I got straight to the point. I couldn't go back to the apartment yet. Sure. Where are you? Tell me what you need, and I'll bring everything at once. His name was Chao Yong, and he was clearly excited. This imported stock had been sitting unsold for ages. Local winters were cold enough, but regular cotton shoes and leather boots did the job fine. Nobody wanted to spend big money on such exotic-looking footwear. The recent weird weather had given him the idea to post in the group chat, and he couldn't believe someone actually bit. 3 pairs of reindeer boots and 3 hats. If they were genuine, I was stocking up.
Got it.
Need any fur coats too? No thanks. I sent him the location of a coffee shop next to my hotel. An hour later, we met. Chao Yong wore a plaid shirt and carried an enormous black leather bag. I wore black framed glasses and a black mask and sat right across from him. Here's what you wanted, take a look. He handed over the bag. These boots came through unofficial channels, so the transaction had to stay quiet. That suited me perfectly. I unzipped the bag and inspected everything carefully. The boots were beautifully crafted, each one made from a single piece of deer hide, decorated with traditional beaded patterns and ornaments. Following the guide I'd studied online, I checked every detail and confirmed they were genuine reindeer hide boots. The sable hats were authentic too. What do you think? Chao Yong leaned in. They're real. Can you lower the price? I can't go lower, I need to break even. But I'll throw in 2 pairs of pure leather gloves, also from Yakutsk. The locals wear them in winter. Your hands won't freeze even below -50. He glanced around and lowered his voice.